On today's podcast, your hosts TC and Chris Nicole sit down with the inventor of the weighted hip thrust and well-known expert in glute training, Bret Contreras, author of Glute Lab, founder of BC Strength, and founder of Booty by Bret. Our guest is also a certified strength and conditioning coach with a PhD in sports science. Since Bret is responsible for the inception of StrongLifting, we will be diving deep into the sport's roots, what it is, where it came from, and what you can expect on Meet Day at the upcoming Miami International Fitness Expo on June 1st. Okay, guys, we are back and we are going to get started with this podcast, but we are having an interesting conversation before we hit that record button. So, Bret, would you mind just explaining to us or going into depth on part of our conversation, talking about basically the death of the practitioner?
Yes, yep. So it's interesting times that we live in right now. For the first time in the history of mankind, it hurts you if you're a practitioner, if you're in your field, meaning it hurts you on social media. And what this means is the most popular people in every field are not practicing. So you look at personal training, all the top fitness influencers that are pawning themselves off as experts in the field, they don't train anyone. And it hurts you to train people, and here's why. Number one, the more free time you have, the more social media posts you can make. It is really, really hard to make like 5 Reels or 5 TikToks, 5 YouTube Shorts a week.
Yes.
5 good ones. It's a full-time job.
Yeah.
So if you train people for 5 hours a day, God, I have personal trainer friends that train people for 12 sessions a day. The most I ever did was 8 sessions a day. That's a long day.
That's a lot.
There were a couple clients that got like low energy, Bret, were yawning and like just going through the motions. So now it's usually 3 to 5 hours for me, but 9 to 3 is the most I do. That's like 6 hours. But usually 10 to 2, like 4 hours. But I'm tired. I train big, large groups, but I'm penalized for that. I'm penalized in 2 ways. Number one, I'm tired. I can't make as many social media posts because I put my energy into training people. And number 2, here's the way it hurts you the most. When you train people, you don't make bold claims. You don't say stupid shit.
Yeah.
Like it's direct. Like the stupid shit you say is inversely proportional to the amount of people you train. So if you train nobody, then you're bold. You're like, this is the way you squat. This is the way to hip thrust. And you see all these jackasses now. They're effing jackasses. They say the dumbest shit that no personal trainer, no one who actually trains people would ever say. You will never hear an actual personal trainer be like, this is the way you squat. This is the way you hip thrust. This is the way you deadlift. Don't do it this way. This is stupid. No one who actually trains people say that, because I have 60 clients. I've got like 30 clients in Fort Lauderdale, 30 in San Diego, and I train them every month. I'm going back and forth, and you know that everyone hip thrusts differently. Everyone does kickbacks differently. Everyone squats differently. So you would never say something so insanely stupid as this is the only way to squat or this is how you squat. Trainers don't say that, and it's a dead giveaway. And let me tell you how to recognize if someone's a real trainer or not. Go to my page. I'm collaborating with all my clients. They want to collab with me. They're proud to show off their trainer. So you go to my Instagram page and you'll just see tons of collaborations with my actual clients. Go to my story. Every freaking day I will have 20 clients tagging me on my stories. That's how you can spot a real trainer. The other way you can spot a real trainer is, do they say stupid shit? If they say stupid, bold shit, they're not a trainer. So whenever you hear a guy say, don't do this exercise this way, this is stupid, he's not a trainer. He's a fake trainer. And I wish Instagram I wish they actually looked into things. Do you actually work with people in real life? Imagine the lawyers that you follow don't actually practice law. The top lawyers, the top scientists in the field, they're not actually conducting research, the most popular ones, they stop. I remember I had this good friend, and he's like, he was roommates with the most popular chiropractor in the world. And I'm like, does he see patients anymore? No, he stopped. What does he do? He goes out and parties and collaborates with other TikTokers. And that's a smart business move. If what you care about is money, then that's what you do. You collaborate, you have this inner circle of top influencers that you collaborate with, and you all build each other up, and that's the wise business move. Now, I want to be the actual expert. So I take the time to read research every night. I pore over the research at night. I train people during the day. I train myself in the evening, because what you know is a pie chart. 1/3 of what you know is what you learn through lifting weights yourself. Another third is what you learn through training other people. And the final third is what you learn through reading and, talking shop to other coaches and going to conferences and watching, seminars and listening to podcasts and reading research, etc. So it's really a sad era. It's a sad state of affairs. And I wish social media platforms would say fake trainer, or like make you had to admit, because how funny it would be if people had to preface every post with, now, because think about it, these people are claiming to know everything when they're not even working in the field. They know deep down. They know they're frauds. They know they're charlatans. That's why they're so defensive. That's why they puff up their feathers. This is stupid shit. Don't do rounded. Don't ever round your back during back extensions. Don't ever lean forward during squats. Hip thrust, you don't do the scoop method, you hinge. Like, we do everything here. And there's different strokes for different folks depending on your anatomy, injury history, goals. And everyone knows that. Everyone knows that people do things differently. But still, the people who become the most popular are the ones that make the bold claims. And they're saying, this exercise is stupid. This exercise sucks. No actual personal trainer says this exercise sucks, because they've trained that pregnant lady who loves cable pull-throughs. They've trained that old person who loved box squats. It made them feel more safe to tap their butt on something. They don't bash exercises. You like it all. Like, I'm a real trainer. I train real people in real life, and therefore, I love every exercise. It's all, a skilled carpenter is going to have a large tool set. Yes, they're going to use their hammer and their screwdriver more frequently, but they're going to use that specialty tool throughout the year, depending on the situation. And so we have finally embarked on this weird era where you actually get rewarded for being dumber. And the Dunning-Kruger effect is massive. People are so dumb. They're so overly confident with what they think they know. The top experts in the field are not even respected anymore. I used to be very well respected, and now I go on and I look, and it's just, someone will make a post about me, and you read the comments, there's just one comment after another bashing me and acting like I don't know what I'm doing. And it's like, I have a PhD. I've published over 50 studies, presented all over the world. Like, I'm a very accomplished person, and I'm in it for the right reasons. Like, I really want to maximize my understanding, and I try to admit when I'm wrong. I try to not make bold claims. And there's these people out there that they think they know more than me, and they don't train anyone. They've been lifting weights a few years. They've never taken a biomechanics course, but they pawn themselves off as biomechanists because there's no consequence to being wrong. There's no one policing you. There's no one fact-checking. You can say the dumbest shit, and as long as you say it confidently, you get rewarded with today's algorithms. Because when you reward, when you have entertainment algorithms that reward controversy and, what's more entertaining? Real news or fake news? Science or pseudoscience? Cautious claims or bold, confident claims? And so, welcome to the death of the practitioner, the new era where no one even checks and sees, does this person actually work with anyone in real life? No one cares.
Yeah, I think it's hard. The criteria for finding important content or like quality content, I think for the consumer, now they're looking at how many followers the person has, how viral the, content has become. And I think that you're right. The criteria for who you should be listening to, I think it's in a very muddied space right now. So I think that's good advice for people who are looking for quality content is check out your resource before moving forward.
Make sure they're not just a fitfluencer. Because that's rampant.
Yes, but let's jump right into strong lifting because that is the topic of our podcast. We want to make sure we give plenty of time for that. So, Bret, why don't you
Good
start?
job keeping me on task. If you let me rant, I will go off on 1 hour tangents.
We're here for more. We're ready.
She's
I need
great
a
about
I need
being
a
the
shock
horse
collar.
blinders. Yeah.
Don't be afraid to shock me.
Oh, great. So, yeah, why don't you tell our listeners what is strong lifting and how was it conceptualized? And then maybe go into a little bit of like if it was motivated by physique results, performance results. Yeah, why don't you get right into it?
So the year was 2020. COVID happened. We were all quarantined. California was really strict with the quarantine. And, I was trying to be positive and be like, okay, Bret, at least you have a gym you can go to. You don't have to do body weight only exercises. You can actually do your same routine. You're going to be lonely, but, you're lucky. You got a nice house, you got a gym, you're good. But I'm like, I'm going to be so lonely. I need people. I'm the most extroverted guy you will ever meet. I have to be around people. Like, I go crazy. So I was like, okay, yes, I might get COVID and something bad could happen, but I'm also worried about my mental health.
Yeah.
And so, one by one, like my client Allegra, she's like, Coach, can I train with you? You know me. You know I have to train. I have to be lifting. I have to be around people or I'm going to go crazy. And I know Allegra. And I know she'll go crazy without.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, you can come. Come lift with me. So it was just me and Allegra for a while. And then some people started hearing some whispers. And, when you owned a gym back then in California, and every gym owner was doing it.
Yes.
Every single gym owner was letting people in the back doors, like a speakeasy with a special knock. You put, construction paper over your windows, and the authorities would come knocking, and you'd be like, "Everyone out the back door!" Hi, yeah, just playing music by myself. But it was little by little, more people start trickling in. Okay, so, and it's funny because that was a horrible year. There were so many deaths around the world. Luckily, nothing happened to us. But I think we will all tell you that was the best year of our lives. Every one of us, my whole squad, like 30 of us. It was the best year of our lives, and here's why. You weren't concerned about your career so much at that point. You weren't like, I got to make a post a day. You were just getting by. Remember at first it was like quarantine for like 30 days, I think?
Yes.
Two
Yep.
weeks to flatten the curve, I
Yeah,
think it was.
2 weeks or
That's
what,
what
30
they
days
said.
to flatten
Yeah.
the curve.
Yeah.
And then it was in Florida here, I think it was just like a week. But in California, we were like gyms. If you owned a gym, I don't know, I feel so bad for it. I make my money online. I don't have to make my money in real life. If I made my money through my gym, I would have went under. So many gym owners went under because you're not allowed to have clients, but you have to pay full rent.
Yeah.
And so you're paying full rent and and they're telling you can't have a client, but the landlords are getting paid. It's so silly.
Yeah.
Like I thought for sure like they were going to be like landlords split the difference. No, you pay full rent, but you can't train anyone. And then we opened up for like a month and then closed back down. And so it was 9 months of that. So anyway, 9 months of everyone just trying to get by. You weren't so concerned with maximizing your productivity. You were trying to get by. And everyone's favorite time of the day was going to the gym because that's the only time you saw another human.
Yeah.
And so, you'd go to the gym and they would work out for 3 hours. They would be, every person, and it's funny because I used to only train people, back then I was writing my book, Glute Lab,
Oh, wow.
And so I wasn't training, but I was trying to finish my book and I was only training people a couple days a week, like Mondays and Thursdays. I'd go to the gym every day, but I was, I'd walk around and help out, but I wasn't training people like, full time. And when I during the quarantine, I think I'd show up at like 10 o'clock in the morning and I'd leave at like 8 p.m. So I'd be there 10 hours. And it was like whoever, I had the morning crew, the midday crew, and the evening night crew. And it was a really special time because I felt so bad for everyone. I'm like, I'm lucky. You know, I used to be a high school math teacher for 6 years in Arizona, Scottsdale. I was making 30 grand a year. And I got by, but I couldn't do much. I remember being like, I can't afford Netflix. I had to be on a strict budget, okay?
Yeah, I
Like
remember
Netflix
hearing
was
this.
$12 and I wouldn't do Netflix. Like, I was on a tight budget. So during the quarantine, I'm like, shoot, everyone's, people are, it's bad timing. I'm gonna help them out. I'm gonna spoil them. So in the mornings, I'd be like, all right, guys, I'm going to 7-Eleven. Who wants something? And at first, people were like, can you get me a protein? Can you get me an energy drink? And then it was like, Coach, can I get 2 things? Coach, can I get 3 things? And I'd be like, get whatever you want. It was like an $80 a day. I'd go in, I'd get, I'd have like 5 different types of energy drinks and, Celsius, Monsters, what's the crazy one? The one with 300.
Oh, the bangs.
The bangs.
Yeah.
The bangs, I'd have the Core Power with 42 grams of protein, chocolate, vanilla, get me the strawberry with 24. I can't handle the 42 grams of protein. And then it was the snacks too, and the kombuchas, and you name it, I would get it for them, and they loved it. It was like, when you get something for free, you feel so good. But I'm like, I was thinking, these girls are my rock stars. Like, I don't pay them, I don't sponsor them. Other people sponsor them. They train with me. I don't charge them. I train them for free, but I'm going to spoil them. Then whoever would be with me for dinner, like when I'd finish, I'd be like, who wants to go to dinner? And I remember I first started out, I had like Amanda and Dominique with me, and I'm like, we're at sushi, PB Sushi in San Diego at Pacific Beach, and I'm like, let me just pay for the dinner. And they're like, no, why would you pay for us? I'm like, because I make a lot of money. Why would I not pay for you? And they're like, okay. And then fast forward to today. You can always tell the new person, they're like, do I need to pitch in? I'm like, you're new here. My squad now is like caviar, the steaks, the
Wagyu.
no, the Wagyu, and then the tomahawk steaks.
Oh, sure, yep.
The chocolate martinis. I spoil them. I love it. In fact, that's one reason why I want to do well in life, is so I can keep spoiling my family and my squad. I drive a Toyota Tacoma. I get these, clothes off of Amazon.
Well, you're dressed up today. You put a T-shirt on
I put
for
a
us.
T-shirt on.
No.
I felt like, man, I should go change.
I got my clothes off Amazon. I don't need a lot.
Yeah.
I'm not I just, but what I spend my money on is, I don't drive nice cars. I don't have a lot of jewelry or anything. I don't care about that, but my gym is amazing.
Yes.
This gym is now 4,500 square feet. I've got all the equipment. It's such a nice gym, but that's how
amazing.
If there's a glute machine, it's here.
if there's a glute machine, it's here. Okay, so I'm staying on task. So back to StrongLifting. So at that time, I have this client, Carly, and, I train so many people, I wait till they prove themselves to really pay attention to them, because it's like back in the San Diego days, it was like an assembly line. It was like new people every day, but, I would like pour so much energy into people, and then they'd vanish after the first month, and I'm like, God, that's annoying. They quit coming. So I'd make them wait. Like my client Vanessa, she's one of my strongest girls. I didn't pay attention to her for and I told her, I go, you keep coming. I'm not gonna waste my time until you prove yourself. So keep coming. And I knew she'd be a freak. And I'd always tell Amanda, I'm like, Amanda, you piss me off, and I'm gonna pour my energy into Vanessa, and she's gonna become the strongest squatter. And Amanda's like, you wouldn't. But okay, so I have Carly, and she's such a natural hip thruster. I mean, this lockout strength. She locks out every hip thrust. It's just crazy. It's like always uses full range. One day I'm like, Carly, put on 405. And she's just like, put on 495. She's like, I'm like, okay, wow. She's going to be, if she's doing this without me pushing her.
Yeah.
So I decided to start pushing her. Okay, so she's throwing up 600 pounds. She's getting freakishly strong. And this is in San Diego on the West Coast. On the East Coast, there's another badass by the name of Katie Saunier. And she's throwing around 600-pound hip thrusts. And I just want to know, who's the strongest female hip thruster in the world? Is it Carly or is it Katie? It's funny. Back in the day, there was this, I think it was a Reebok or Nike Reebok ad, like Dan or Dave. It was like in the 80s or 90s or something with the decathletes, and they made this big thing about it. Katie or Carly, And I called Katie. I'm like, hey, I want to take my squad on a trip. Well, we want to come to Miami. And it would be cool to have a hip thrust off between you and Carly. But also, at that time, Katie had 2 workers, Jess and Haley. And I've got, like 20 girls that are freakishly strong. And I'm, so I'm like, maybe we should do more lifts than just the hip thrust, Let's see who's the strongest. And I'm like, I love powerlifting. I've always loved powerlifting. I love squats, bench, and deadlifts. But I also love military press, weighted chin-ups, and hip thrusts. And I love powerlifting, but I do feel like if all you do are the power lifts, and yes, powerlifters do accessory lifts, but I don't care what anyone says, you never work them as hard as your main lifts. Mm-hmm. Think about how hard you push your main lifts. You can't. It's almost foolish to, because you don't want to put all your juice into T-bar rows and pull downs and single leg stuff and every posture change. They do them, but they don't do them with the same level of effort. So, and I will tell you, when you start focusing on chin-ups, you gain lats. Mm-hmm. When you start focusing on hip thrusts, you grow glutes. Yes, squats and deadlifts will build your glutes, but hip thrusts build them more.
Oh, yeah, directly, yeah.
You will gain greater glute size and even shoulders. Yes, bench works your shoulders well, but military press, they'll get even bigger. So, the very first StrongLifting competition was in Miami in 2020, in September of 2020. And it was 16 of my girls. And it was so much fun. It was at Katie Saunier's gym in Miami. The weather was perfect. I remember we were in the water, and I'm like, we could stay in here at the beach. We could stay in here for like 3 hours. We got sunburned. We had so much fun, though. It was a bonding experience,
Sure.
And it was just so cool for the coach to come and back then I was the spotter, the plate changer, the one telling them what their next lift should be, and it was an exhausting day.
Yeah.
But it was so much fun because seeing my girls compete, it's so cool as a coach to watch PRs being set. And it's funny because their physique, so you said, is it for performance or physique?
Right.
Well, it's for physique. I train bikini competitors. Mm-hmm. I train women that care about, they want the glutes. They want to look strong. They do care about their physiques, but I try to teach them not to be obsessive. Like, the one thing I hate about bikini training is the body dysmorphia and this obsession with, like, live a little.
Yeah.
Yes.
It makes having a growing season so hard because you're focused on just what you look like on stage. And then as soon as you start putting any weight on, your aesthetics are going by the wayside. So if you don't have the performance aspect to think about, like, training becomes so hard to, like, keep them focused and motivated and moving that direction.
Yeah. So that's what I loved about the StrongLifting. It's like so then we did September, we did StrongLifting, and then we did Tulum in December, in mid-December. And so just a few months later. And so, God, we were on the beach. Everyone was like filming us, like they thought we were celebrities. Like, what's this one guy with like, I think I brought 35 people to Tulum. I think I paid like 70 grand, and it was the best week of my life to this day. I'm 47 years old. It was the best week of my life, and I had so much fun.
What was it like doing an event in Tulum, a strong lifting event?
So
in Tulum?
we did it at Tulum Strength Club, and it was the air conditioning broke. It was just a crazy day. It was so hot. It turned on. I think I don't know if it ever turned on actually, but yeah, it was just a crazy day. And but so many PRs were set. Like I mentioned, Carly. Carly was struggling. I think she hit a 325-pound deadlift the week before, but taking having a deload the last week, arriving in Tulum, the girls were having so much fun. It took the stress away. They were, drinking pina coladas and eating tacos, and just, yeah, Carly just said, I was so stressed for so long. I think I added to the stress because I would keep a computer up on the reverse hyper. The reverse hyper always becomes a table. You're like your standing desk,
Yeah.
And I kept the computer up with a spreadsheet that I would update daily. So anytime someone set a PR, I'd update it, and I had my whole squad, and I had their strength on all 6 lifts and their relative strength and their totals. So they'd come in, like Amanda would come in and be like, Carly hit a PR, Carly hit a squat PR. Fuck, like, damn it, like. I gotta do better. So I pushed them, and I knew what to do. I knew how to encourage them. I knew how to motivate them.
You knew where the buttons were for each athlete.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
Keep them going.
yeah, I did. Like Allegra, she likes like rage lifting, so I'd whisper in her ear something like. Something terrible, something horrible.
something to piss her off.
And she'd be like, fuck you, Brett, and then pull a PR and burst into tears, and all the girls would be hugging with her. And they will tell you, he knows. Coach knows what to say.
He knows your
Sure,
client.
yeah.
Some of the girls need to be pumped up.
Yeah.
Some of the girls, like, I don't think you can get this. And
Oh,
yeah,
no.
they're like, what? And they'll lift it. You learn as a coach.
Yeah.
The best way to motivate all of them. So that's how StrongLifting started. It was like, for me, I love powerlifting, but it's not complete from a physique. It's not meant to be a physique
Right.
training system.
Correct.
StrongLifting is a physique training system. Now, here's what I will tell you. Then we did San Diego in April, the next year, 2021, and I look at my girls were bikini competitors, okay? They would always you see this in a lot of bikini competitors. Off season is just laziness, and then they rely on prep to get them back in shape.
Yeah. Unfocused off seasons.
Yeah.
I see that a lot too.
Yeah.
Like bodybuilders, in my experience, male bodybuilders would work hard year round, but a lot of I'd be like, I remember when I first started training them back in 2018, I'm like, you guys, you guys are physique competitors. You got to stay working hard year round.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's also a thing that I encounter as well is like women wanting to look good, but they think if they're training too heavy, then they're going to mess up their optimal look. And that's one thing I absolutely love about strong lifting is that you get to be a strong woman that looks good. And I think, like you said, all those 6 lifts, they comprise the whole body in a nice aesthetic, and you're strong.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's just for women either. I think that's where it started, but I think the incorporation of the other, everyone wants to look good and be strong. That's the ultimate goal, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
So I will tell you, like Amanda, Jade looked like she could step on stage in 2 weeks. Like she wasn't on prep. It was the best in my opinion, the best she ever looked. And I wish she would have stepped on stage after, like, she would have needed like 3 weeks, I feel like.
Sure. Yeah.
But during her bikini she doesn't compete anymore. But while she was competing, her coach, like, so frustrating as a strength coach, because I've probably worked with 20 women who have done the Bikini Olympia. I've worked with tons of Bikini Olympians, but you have to listen to the judge's feedback. So if a judge tells you, you got to bring down your quads,
Yes.
quit training your quads, your back is too wide, I've had clients quit training upper body for a year.
Yeah.
I've had clients just do glutes. I've had girls just do glutes and delts for a whole year.
Yeah.
They can't hit quads, hammies. And I would always, I remember with Jade one time, she had to just do cardio. She did upper body and cardio
Oh no.
and couldn't train legs. And she still looked amazing on stage. But I'm like, Jade, your best asset is your glutes. And you never had the best glutes you could have had because you're always listening to these coaches. And she had one famous coach who told her, don't hip thrust heavy, it makes your waist blocky. And, so you could only do, this was years ago, but like 2017 era, she was only allowed to do 2 high rep glute exercises. So she did high rep machine, hip thrust off the leg curl machine,
Oh yeah.
or the leg extension machine.
Leg extension, yeah.
Yeah.
And then seated hip abductions. And she had amazing glutes from those 2 exercises. But like she looked the best she's ever looked. Amanda looked the best she's ever looked off season.
Yeah.
My girls were like, it was cool to go around with them because they were so confident and like
Yeah.
strong. And you feel when you're at your peak strength, you feel
Yes.
you have a pep in your step. You strut your stuff.
Yeah.
You walk taller. You walk around. So yeah, some of them might be a little thicker, but they have big old booties, and they're proud of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember seeing Dominique wearing these jean shorts, and I'm like, oh my God, like, these back gains, like they're wearing like dresses, and you see these muscular delts and back, and I'm like, holy crap, my girls are. When you do chin-ups as a competition lift, for example, Amanda's like, Coach, why'd you make chin-ups one of the lifts? I can't even do a chin-up. And I'm like, you can do one chin-up. She's like, I can do one chin-up. And I'm like, well, we got 6 weeks. Our first competition, we only trained for 6 weeks. And during those 6 weeks, I knew my girls would crush it because they didn't practice singles. They built up a big base, but they never got practice with heavy singles.
Sure. Yeah.
So when they start doing heavy singles, it's just skill. It's
Yeah.
coordination.
Yeah.
So their strength went through the roof during those 6 weeks. 6 weeks later, she hit a 30-pound chin-up,
Wow,
Yeah.
She could do like 6 bodyweight chin-ups.
That's great.
6 or 8, maybe 8. But yeah. So I'll tell you this, the strong lifting records of all time was a 405-pound squat by JC, a 425-pound deadlift by JC, but she's not my regular client. She's from New York, I believe, and so trying to get her to move here to Fort Lauderdale. She wants to.
Yeah,
But it's
she's a little
hard. It's
powerhouse.
I vote for her to move down
Yeah.
here.
I know,
JC,
she'd
if you're
love it.
listening.
But my San Diego squad, I did one here in Fort Lauderdale last year, but it was just my San Diego squad that came. My Fort Lauderdale squad, they train mostly for booty, and I don't train their upper bodies much.
Sure.
It's like glute day here all the time. But my San Diego squad, the best of my girls squatted 335. It was like Amanda, Vanessa, and Carly were all around that, like 335-ish, 325-ish, deadlift, Amanda hit 405. Sorry, what did I say that? Ashley Hodge hit 405. Now, she's capable of more, though. Now she does just powerlifting, and she does a stiff bar. In strong lifting, So this is what's kind of cool. I make the rules.
Yeah, yeah.
And you, when you form your own strength organization or whatever, we're not really an organization. It's just StrongLifting is just for my girls, which is cool because now for the first time we're offering it to males and anyone can join, can do it. And
Yeah.
so I did one in LA once where I opened it to the public, but it was smaller.
Yeah.
This is like open to anyone. And so this will be really cool, but it's just been like kind of something I did with my girls. And then I presented it to the public as a training system. Like you should do this, especially if you train a lot of girls. It's fun. The camaraderie is insane, especially if you travel around and like host your own competitions. I feel like we're just so spoiled. We're in a league of our own because like what other coach out there has a squad
Yeah.
and takes them around and we do our own competitions? But I will tell you, it's electric. It's electrifying. These days, it's such a long day, but it's so fun. And it's so cool to watch everyone PR. So I was telling you about Carly in Tulum. She hit a 365-pound deadlift. I thought the weights were fake. She was struggling with 325 like a week and a half prior, but she calmed down. And like I remember being like, no, those are like 35s. They're not 45s. Like, no, she hit a 365. She could have hit a 375, maybe even 385. But anyway, there were like 4 girls: Carly, Amanda, Dom, Vanessa, and then Ashley, who are all capable of a 405-pound deadlift, which is a cool feat.
Yeah.
Military press. It is hard to get a 100-pound military press. The record of all time was 135, but it wasn't my client. It was a girl I invited that I met at the LA show. But the record for my girls, I think Chris Anna hit 120, but there's like 3 girls who hit 115. For weighted chin up. 2 girls hit 80-pound chin up.
Wow.
Or maybe Ashley might have hit 75 and Caitlin hit 80, but yeah, like
That's a good amount of weight.
I know they
Doesn't
could do
matter.
like 5-6 reps with a 45-pound
Wow.
plate, which is crazy.
That is
Yeah.
crazy.
I never would have thought that was possible like as a coach 20 years ago. But yeah, it's amazing. And we'll talk about the form in a minute. But with hip thrust, Carly, it's funny. Carly hit 765, but it's the last lift. Now, there was one girl, her name was Daria. She was one of Katie Saunier's squad members back then. And she hit a legit 805 in training.
Wow. Wow.
She's the only 800-pound legit. I've seen all these clips around the world. They never lock it out, or they're going from a small bench.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
This was the only legit 800-pound hip thrust I've ever seen to this day. I mean, the lockout was solid. I know a good lockout. All the clips you see on the internet, they're not good lockouts. They're not full lockouts.
super
But
soft.
anyway, this was a legit 805. But in competition, it's different. When it's the
Yes.
last lift, it's the 6th lift, and you've been competing for 10 hours straight. So in
Broken air conditioning.
she only hit in San Diego. She competed. She only hit like a 700 only. It was like a 700, like a 675 or 725. But she's capable. But yeah, Carly. To me, Carly will always be the queen of the hip thrust. I just that was my lift, the hip
Yes.
thrust, and she's the best at it. But relatively, I've got Angela and Allegra, and they always battle it out. Allegra weighs like 128, and Angela weighs like 123, and they both hip thrust 600 pounds,
Wow.
like legit lockouts. But I probably had like 8 girls who could hip thrust 600 pounds or more. Dominique could hip thrust 700. I mean, these are clean lockouts too. My average hip thrust strength among 30 girls was 550.
That's crazy.
And so it's funny, if you think about like an Olympic training center, what do you see? You see platforms and squat stands, right? Everywhere.
Yeah.
It's just a bunch of deadlift platforms and squat stands.
Yeah.
And they do all the squats and front squats and all the Olympic lifts, right? The clean and snatch variations. You go to a powerlifting gym, what do you see?
Bunch of combo racks.
Power racks and bench
Yeah.
press, You go to Glute Lab, what do you see? Hip
All-
thrusters.
Every glute machine.
Well, in San Diego, I had
Yeah.
lined up on the wall, like 20 hip thrust stations. You get good at what you perform the most.
Right.
Bench press. Ashley Hodges hit like 200 pounds in training, but she's now competing in powerlifting. So Naomi, she hit 225.
Wow.
She's not my client though. Out of my clients, it was like 180-ish.
That's still very respectable.
Back when
for women.
Ashley was doing, she hit like 180 back then.
I'm amazed
Carly
you
was
can
hitting
remember all this.
Carly hit like 180, but before StrongLifting, it was rare for me to have women who could bench 135.
Yeah, sure.
Here's what I'll tell you too: the COVID quarantine, all the girls were doing before they started coming to Glute Lab, before they learned the secret handshake and they were doing body weight from home. I can't tell you how many girls came in and set bench press PRs, like 6 of them.
Wow.
Bench press PRs from push-ups.
Yeah.
They're doing so much push-ups because they're bored.
Yeah.
They're just doing a ton of push-ups.
Like
so
prison.
it's interesting with women. They don't have as much relative strength as they can't bench press what men can. They don't care as much. But
That's what
a
it is.
push-up is an awesome assistance lift for bench press for women. For men, I can't keep my bench press strength through push-ups. But you'd have to make them more challenging.
Yes, Yeah.
You'd have to
Do like weighted, put
weighted or
back
banded or
bands, yeah.
Yeah, let's
focus on one arm or
let's talk about how to train for the 6 lifts
Yeah.
and
Yes.
what are some good accessory lifts too.
Yes, good call. So you think powerlifting is tough. Training for 3 lifts, powerlifting is a piece of cake compared to StrongLifting. And I don't mean that, that was stupid. We should scratch that. Don't scratch it, but play this, clarify. I don't mean to disrespect powerlifting. Like,
Sure.
powerlifting is so badass.
Yeah.
And these freaks, there's so many freaks out there. I admire them. I love powerlifting. I'm just saying,
Compare relatively
powerlifter,
speaking.
like you're a badass powerlifter. If you train for a StrongLifting meet, you'd be like, yeah,
It's a
that was
lot.
so much harder than
yeah.
Well, it's
Because
double.
it's 2 sessions. Like right out the gate, no matter what you're doing, no matter how much weight you're lifting, you have to lift in both sessions. Which in powerlifting, it's one or the other, right? It's only half the. It's basically part-time versus full-time employment.
There you
know.
go.
Yeah. So what we found was it's hard to recover. Like in powerlifting, okay, in theory, squats and deads should, in theory, squats are more quad dominant, deadlifts are more,
Posterior chain, yeah.
hamstring dominant, and they just complement each other. Deadlifts will strengthen your low back, and no, they compete with each other. Any powerlifter, if you just had squats and bench press, would be a stronger squatter if they omitted deadlifts. And or if they omitted squats and it was just bench and deadlifts, they'd be stronger at the deadlift. Because you could train the deadlift twice a week, once with like stiff legs hard and once with like deadlifts, like the conventional sumo or semi-sumo, your competition stance. And it's hard to squat twice a week and deadlift twice a week.
Yeah.
In theory, you can do it when you're younger and not as strong.
Yep.
Once you get really strong, it's hard to pull that off.
Yeah.
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 A lot of
Your
the top guys-
frequency goes down. Yeah.
A lot of the top guys in the world squat 1 day a week and deadlift 1 day a week. And they don't go for PRs every week on both of them. A lot of them will go for a squat PR 1 week and then like maybe a deadlift PR the next week, or like it's not, when you get stronger, the rules change. But anyway, yeah, it's hard to do squats and deadlifts and hip thrusts every week.
Sure.
It's hard to do bench press and military press every week, So what we found was, all right, we wanted to do a single leg movement because I feel like that, prevents imbalances. It's also a great single leg movements. Powerlifters don't take single leg movements seriously
Yeah.
in general,
Right up your alley.
and they should. I can't tell you how many case studies I have where someone injured themselves and I'm like, okay, they injured their low back or something. And I'm like, let's just do single leg lifts, all right? Does it hurt your low back to do deficit reverse lunges? What about Bulgarian split squats? Okay, we're just doing those 2 lifts, no squats. And they do that for like 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and they come back and they set a squat PR. And I know I wouldn't say that with like, God, I just saw this guy squat like 1,200 pounds for 2 reps today.
Oh gosh.
What was his name? I'll tell you.
TC. His name's TC.
Yeah, right. I don't know how much equipment I was wearing for that one.
Yeah.
Squat suits on it.
Zahir
Oh, yep.
Kudayarov.
Yeah. He's been kind of like up and coming. I mean, he's I believe.
Sorry, 1,047 pounds for 2 reps.
Yeah.
1,047 raw for a double. Is it raw? What are these knee reps?
Yeah, I think it's raw with wraps.
Where's reps like that? Anyway.
Yeah, that's
whatever.
ridiculous.
Yeah, so shaky he is. But yeah, like I'm not gonna tell Zahir, oh, you need to be doing Bulgarian split squats, brah. Like, you know, when you get so freakishly strong, like you're like, you know, at that level, it's all about specificity.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like
There you go.
it takes you an hour to do the lift.
Yeah.
Just to warm up, like think about it. That Zahir probably, you know, starts off with body weight squats and then 135, 225, 315, 405, 495, 585, 675, 765, 855, 945. Like you go up a plate at a time, you know? And it's like he probably rests at least 5 minutes in between sets, you know? And it
Yeah,
takes an
especially
hour.
towards the end.
Yeah, and then you got to wrap and belt, and it's just a lot. It's a lot, you know? And so I'm not going to tell the top lifters in the world, like, you need to be doing your hip thrusts, you need to be doing your single leg lifts. But I will tell you, as a guy who trains everyday people, if you've never used chains and bands and chains for a cycle, do it. If you've never done single leg strength, focused on that for a cycle, do it. If you've never focused on hip thrust for a cycle, do it. Any coach who actually pushes these lifts will have scintillating stories about these awesome, like Carly. She was getting hip pain from squatting. She was also having trouble with depth. So how do we make it less in the bottom position, but still make it challenging? Let's do a cycle of chain squats. She did 6 or 8 weeks of chain squats only. And we have 90 pounds. My chains in San Diego weigh 88 pounds. Yeah, so basically like 90 pounds of chains. So she was squatting, like I think her top, she got up to like 205 for a set of 6. So that's 205 at the very bottom, 295 at the very top for 6 reps. Now her first time squatting after that chain cycle, she hit a 325-pound squat for a PR. And like, you know that the next week she would hit 335 and then she got COVID.
Oh.
So she couldn't compete.
Oh,
And she was at the height of her game.
wow.
But that she set a PR, an all-time PR after 6 weeks of chain squats. I had Allegra and also my camera guy, Alex, do single leg only for 8 weeks because they had low back injuries.
Yes.
And they both hit squat PRs. But let me tell you, Allegra was doing reverse lunges, Smith machine reverse lunges with 225. She was doing Bulgarian split squats, holding onto a 60 with each hand.
Wow.
We're having to bust out the wrist wraps
Yeah.
to help her hold on to the weight because her grip strength is so much. You get to where you're doing Bulgarians with 60 pounds per hand, that's going to transfer to your squat.
Yeah.
And then hip thrusts. I've got crazy hip thrust stories. And you have this. If you train people, and this is what annoys me so bad, when the people bash hip thrusts, because I will tell you, I trained a guy from Zimbabwe. He was a CrossFitter, and he had these big, giant legs, and he had big glutes too. But he's like, he could squat he could squat and deadlift like 475, 495 ish. And I was like, let me see you do barbell glute bridges, because I trained him at his CrossFit gym,
Yeah.
and they don't have benches and stuff. He didn't have benches for hip thrusts and stuff. So I said, let's do barbell glute bridges.
Yeah.
He couldn't budge 135. So it's like, wait, what? Really? You can't lift that up? This is crazy. Your glutes are huge.
Yeah.
Let me take the bar away. Let me see you do body weight. And he gets to the top and he's shaking. He's locking out a hip thrust and trembling. I'm like, oh my God. Then I was like, they have GHDs at the CrossFit gyms,
Yes.
for straight leg sit-ups and stuff and
Yeah.
glute ham raises. So I had him do back extensions off of the glute ham developer. He got to the top and he'd be shaking. So I said, okay, here's what I want you to do. Every day I want you to do 5 sets of 5 body weight glute bridges and 5 sets of 5 body weight back extensions, okay? For 30 straight days. So this is crazy. This is crazy. 30 days later, from just these body weight movements, he put 70 pounds on his deadlift.
Wow.
70 pounds on his deadlift.
That's wild.
And I will tell you, I remember there was this powerlifter in Tempe that I trained. His name was Bret, and he was a 198-pound powerlifter, and he pulled 732. And but he's like Bret, my lockout strength is so weak. So I did the same thing. I put him on hip thrusts and back extensions, but rounded back, because I'm like, no one's perfectly arched. He was a conventional puller.
Sure.
No one's perfectly arched in their conventional. They're rounded a little bit. So I had him do like rounded back. Anyway, yeah, he pulled 732, but he's like, Bret, in like 2 months, my lockout is my strongest point.
Wow.
Like I feel like if I could just get it a mid shin level, I can lock it out. So you have these stories when you train people in real life, which brings, our initial, my rant in the beginning of this podcast was that bunch of fakers that don't train anyone. That's what bugs me about these guys who bash exercises, because you find that when you're a good coach, you find their weakness and you're like, this person needs to do more single leg work, or this person could benefit from doing more hip thrusts. Not everyone,
But you have a story about a powerlifter who benefited from hip thrusts.
Yeah, it's all about knowing when to prescribe it. Yeah, Michael, he tweaked his low back, and it was the same thing. It was first he tweaked his low back on squats, so we took squats out, and then he tweaked his low back again a couple weeks later on deadlifts, so we took those out too. And he took 2 months of just doing hip thrusts. He pushed it. He was getting up to like 585 for his working sets, and there were Smith machines hip thrusts, but still, like, it was building that glute strength. He came back, hit a I want to say 20-pound squat PR and a 40-pound deadlift PR. So
He's very strong.
yeah,
from not even doing the lifts.
exactly. And he was already very strong. It's not like this kid was weak. He was already squatting, 535, and then deadlifting over 600. So yeah, when he comes back and you hit PRs like that when you're already that strong, it says something.
And that's what I think bugs me the most about these, what the social media encourages these days. Bashing. Instead of praising things, bashing things.
Everything's black and white.
Everything's black and white. So
Yeah.
these people who bash hip thrusts, what would they say about that?
Yeah.
It's
What
fake.
would they say about
Yeah,
that
exactly.
story?
It has to, like, what else are you gonna say?
What would they
like
say?
You're lying. I
You're
can't even
lying.
think.
No,
Yeah.
hip thrusts suck. Hip thrusts
Yeah.
don't do anything. They suck.
Yeah.
Okay, well, this guy,
He just doesn't exist. I made this guy up.
yeah. Well, that's what, it's funny because,
Michael, we need you on the podcast.
No, he'll be at the StrongLifting meet, so they'll see you in Miami. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we'll introduce you.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be great.
we'd be like, you're welcome. There's this new debate, which we're going to do a different podcast on, the muscle length debate,
Yes.
long length versus short length. And it's funny because out of all the researchers out there, all these scientists, but again, they learn by reading and training themselves. So they all work out themselves, but they learn through reading.
Yeah.
And I'm out here training all these women. So I can tell you my client Vika, my client Amanda, my client Julia, my client Urishna. Urishna was squatting 315 for 6 last year. Now, I have her squatting seldomly now, and I got up to 275 for 6. So she's lost, 40 pounds on her squat for 6 reps. So her glutes should be smaller. By what these guys are saying, her glutes should be smaller because hip thrusts don't do anything,
Right.
and squats are the end all be all. And she's not. So basically, she came to me and she's like, she's a wellness competitor, and she's known for having these badass legs. And she's
an
like,
Olympian.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
she's an Olympian. And so she's like, my feedback is that my legs overpower my glutes. So I said, Urishna, 2 things. Number 1, quit hopping from trainer to trainer, because Some of our trainers I like and respect a lot, but it's just a natural thing you do. You're my client, and it's your first session with me. What am I naturally going to do? I want to impress you. I want you to be the sorest you've ever been in your glutes. You know, I'm not going to be like, how often are you training glutes? 3 days? Okay, I'm only going to give you 10 working sets, and I'm not going to kill you. Then they'll be like, he doesn't push you that hard. So when you hop from trainer to trainer, they give you so much volume. They're doing crazy, you know, you're doing like 20 hard sets. You're doing drop sets. You're doing supersets. You're doing this crazy shit, you know, like parking lot, walking lunges and stuff. And then what the clients do is they go, oh my God, I've never been this sore. You're amazing. No, not if you train glutes 3 times a week.
Yeah.
If you train legs 3 days a week, you can't do that much. And so anyway, I said, quit going, just come to me. Come to me 3 times a week, and we're not doing any quads or hamstrings. This means no squats, no lunges, no leg press, no hack squats, no leg extensions, no stiff leg deadlifts, no leg curls, no Nordics. You know, we're not doing any quads and hamstrings. It's just going to be all glutes. It's going to be hip thrusts. It's going to be kickbacks. It's going to be back, like, you know, 45-degree hypers. It's going to be lots of abduction straight up, abduction bending over. And her glutes have blown up.
Mm-hmm.
She looks amazing.
Now she's in proportion. Now we could go back to doing legs, you know, but here's what I will tell you. And same with Julia. She's like, Coach, my glutes are so much rounder now. I'm hip thrusting 3 times a week. I only hip thrusted once a week before I started coming to Glute Lab. But she used to power lift, and she was squatting. She was like, I could squat 225 for 10. Now, one time she wanted to show me her strength. She hit 185 for 10. She can always hit 185 for 10, but she's not as strong as 225 for 10. So she'll do her squats here and there. She'll do deadlifts. She mixes in. She'll always do lunges and stuff, but she's not going for progressive overload on those lifts. She's going progressive overload on hip thrusts and stuff, but she has the look. She's got 1.1 million followers. She has the look. She's, you know, Julia Perez.
She's arrived.
She looks amazing.
Yeah, and it's all
She
about
has
what your
the look,
goals. Yeah.
And her glutes are bigger now from hip thrusts.
Yep.
And I can say the same thing with Vika. She was stronger at hip squat. She was prepping for a competition. She loves squats and deadlifts. That's my bread and butter. I'm like, let's get strong at squats and deadlifts. But she was hurting herself. It's so weird. I'm like, what am I doing wrong? I can always get people stronger at squats and deads. But she was not getting stronger at squats and deads. And she's like, but Coach, my glutes are getting better. Look at my glutes. And I'm like, okay, why don't we stop focusing on squats and deadlifts and let's roll with this.
Yeah.
Let's start with hip thrusts. And her glutes look so good now. And we're focusing on short muscle lanes. We're doing hip thrusts. Well, we'll do a whole podcast on that, but what would these people say that say hip thrusts suck? Because I'm doing it in real life. You're not training anyone. You're basing your training methods off of theory, and I'm doing it in real life. What would they say about your Ishna? What would they say about your guy Michael? Yeah. What would they? What I will tell you is no amount of anecdotes will ever change their mind, because this isn't about science to them. This is not about real world. This is about them being extremely jealous of the hip thrust because it was invented by someone else, and their only way to get popular is by bashing popular stuff out there. And the hip thrust is easy to pick on because it's a humping motion. Men want to hate it. Let's bash the hip thrust. And what I will tell you is the male bashing of hip thrusts out there is this thinly veiled misogyny. It's like, cute little women.
Yeah.
You doing your little hip thrust. You see it all the time out there. And they think that they know how to train for your goals. And meanwhile, these dudes have never done a single set of hip thrusts. They've never done kickbacks. They've never done abduction. And they're telling you how to train. And it makes me embarrassed of my own gender. I am embarrassed to be a man because of these fucking dipshits out there that are so fucking stupid.
Yep.
And they're telling women how to train. Okay, they would tell Julia, hey, Julia, you're doing it wrong. Look at her physique. They'd say, Julia, you should be doing squats and lunges and RDLs. And Julia will tell you, if I focus on squats and lunges and RDLs, I hurt my back. If I do these other lifts, I stay injury-free, and my quads and hamstrings don't grow out of proportion. I I want some quad and hamstring, not too much, and I want a big round booty. And that's the way she wants to look. And she has every right to look that way. And it's so funny because men are so fucking stupid. They can't even take a step to look at themselves in the mirror and be like, is it weird that I train like you have? Is it weird? The lower body is half of your body, but they have one leg day a week that they don't give justice to.
Yeah.
But they have an arm day, a day for this, a day for this. They have a shoulder day, they have a chest, a day for this, a day for this. They have a back day, a chest day, a shoulder day, and an arm day, and just one day for legs that they conveniently skip half the time, or they do quarter squats, or they don't even squat. They just do the machines. They do leg extension, leg curls, and leg press. And then these are the same guys telling women how they should train when they have, I don't know.
Those specific days, yeah.
Like they will isolate. They will be like, just squat and deadlift. When they do isolation lifts for every single muscle except glutes. It's weird. Men are so weird about glutes. Like, again, I'm embarrassed of my own gender. They will isolate their traps. You could say, a woman, I wish women were bullies like men. I wish, like, all women in the world just said, let's bully men the way they bully us. And overnight, all of a sudden, women start bashing men. LOL, quit doing your shrugs.
Yeah.
Just do deadlifts, brah.
Yeah.
Quit doing flies. Quit doing your flies and just bench press. Quit doing your lat prayers and work on your chin-ups or your pull-ups, you know? Quit doing your cute little lateral raises and just work on getting strong at military press. They could say the same thing. Quit doing arms. Why are you doing biceps and triceps when you could just do compound lifts and build it just as well? You could just do bench and incline and dips and, you know, pull downs and chin ups and rows, and your arms could be just as big. And what the guys would say is, no, my arms get even bigger. Yes, compound movements build my arms. They get even bigger when I do actual, like me. My arms, the biggest my arms ever were was when I'm doing a lot of biceps and triceps.
Sure, yeah.
The biggest my delts ever were was when I was focusing on getting strong at lateral raises and rear delt raises.
Yeah.
But they are so dumb, they can't, and it's funny, they will isolate their hamstrings, they'll isolate their quads, they'll do leg extensions, they do leg curls, they do calf raises, and then they tell women don't isolate their glutes. Again, I'm embarrassed to be a man. Like, I'm pride myself on not being, like, being able to, like, look at the big picture.
Sure.
And it's embarrassing how fucking stupid these guys are. It's embarrassing. And also, that's just the weird, like, who thinks they can tell people how to train?
Exactly.
Like, a woman, it's their physique. They don't tell you, like, bro, why don't you try and do some calf raises, bro?
Yeah.
Like, what if guys did that?
Yeah.
What if women were like, you know, because men will be like, you look manly. What if girls did that? Like, you look like an idiot.
Yeah.
Or like, bro, why don't you quit spending all your money on steroids, gym memberships, and protein powder, and actually, like, do something with your life? What if they all did that?
Yep.
It's just so disrespectful. It's embarrassing.
For
What's that guy's name from Despicable from Despicable
yeah,
Me?
with no legs.
Yeah, he's
no legs.
shaped like this, a golf tee. Yeah, but it's crazy. But it feels like if a lot of times kind of going back to what you were talking about with the death of the practitioner, but everyone is an expert in everything now, and it blows me away how much people quote unquote know about any topic. I have people coming up telling me, like, one day I grabbed a squat bar to do deadlifts with, and this kid who clearly had just started lifting within the past couple of years, or maybe not, maybe I was wrong, but I was about to be deadlifting 700 pounds because that's what I was working up to that day, and he felt the need to come over. I'm going to do you a favor here and tell you just grabbed a squat bar. And okay, thank you very much. I know I'm working on my grip strength and I'm working on my strength off the floor. So I appreciate it, but I got it under control. And it's just, it blows me away the amount of things that people think that they're experts in without actually ever. And that's like what Chris Geethan, he's the owner of Cage Muscle. He says one of his favorite things is knowledge without mileage is bullshit. And it's exactly what you're talking about. It's like you can study all you want, but you have to have the other 2/3 of that pie chart.
Yeah, I will tell you, I'm the world's glute expert, right?
Yeah.
Like, I read every study, I conduct experiments, I publish studies, I'm in the gym, I spend my life in this gym. You guys know that because you've been here for 12 hours today.
We know where to
You guys
find you.
have been here 12 hours. And I'm in the gym all day long. No one's going to beat me
Yeah.
because no one outworks me. Because at the end of the night, normal people go home and they're tired and they need to watch their sports and they need to play their stupid video games. And I don't do that. I read research.
Yeah.
So I want to be the expert, and so I make sure that. So I know what being the world's expert on a topic entails. So therefore, I know I'm not. I know, you can have theories about politics and about the way the world works and about different scientific perspectives, but I keep my mouth shut on most of those things because I know I haven't done the research.
Sure.
I have not put in the work. I could become an expert on a lot of things. I haven't put in the work. So you won't hear me, with most things diet related, like nutrition related, I defer to my friend Alan Aragon. I consult my best buddy Brad Schoenfeld all the time. We disagree a lot, but we keep each other in check.
Yeah.
By the way, like we
Which
don't.
is good to have friends.
Yeah,
with
we
different
don't let each other
perspectives,
do.
You know, you can discuss.
We
it.
don't let each other do clickbait. Like if I ever do something like, he'll be like, "What are you doing? Why did you say that? You're wrong." And he calls me out, and I'm always like, "Brad." And but it's funny because we send each other studies every night, and it's just a beautiful friendship. But
Yeah.
I don't, when I think something, I ask him his opinion, and I know he's studying hypertrophy. I'm studying hypertrophy, but I'm focusing on glutes. You need a lot of fields. There's a lot of fields. If you want to be the glute expert, you better know a lot about physical therapy. You better know a lot about pain, and you better know about biomechanics. You got to know about hypertrophy and strength research. You have to know a lot about anatomy and physiology, and there's a lot of fields involved. And so I can't be the expert on every one of those things,
Right.
but I know who the experts are, and then
Yes.
I pick their
Yeah,
brains.
collaborate. Yeah.
And there are some social media experts that have come up with, interesting exercises and concepts and theories, but they don't put them to the test. Because, Richard Feynman, the brilliant physicist, said this, Feynman, he said, if theories don't match experiments, then it's wrong. It doesn't matter how eloquent the theory is, how beautiful it is, how logical it is, how much it makes sense. If it doesn't match experiments, it's wrong. And you have to do the experiments. We don't have enough of that in our field.
Which you've talked about, like every time you do an experiment, you hypothesize first. And it's like 50-50, where
Yeah,
like you're not.
Brad and I are always wrong. We're wrong so
Yeah.
much. We're sure of it. We go into the study
Yeah.
going, here's what I predict to happen, and then we're like, wow, it didn't happen. It humbles you.
Yeah.
It humbles you, and it keeps you from making these bold, silly claims that conveniently these guys out there on social media, they're not trainers and they're also not scientists. So they can never be wrong, and they don't care if they're wrong. And you'll never see them make a post, I was wrong.
Yeah.
They just don't address it.
Because it's all about getting likes and views.
Yeah.
So
And-
like whatever.
and
is
this
gonna get likes and
image,
views.
it must be exhausting to put this image out there that you know everything.
Yeah, and then you got to
That's
hide
what
in your
annoys
mom's
me.
basement so that you don't put the lie to the.
Well, that's what annoys me. If I don't know it, you don't know it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, there's a lot of things I don't know, but if I don't know it, you don't know it either, which means we don't have enough research to go by.
Yeah.
Right.
But anyway, I want to get back to StrongLifting. What I was talking about earlier. Okay, the lifts. You're building your own organization. When do you do weigh-ins? Do you do weigh-ins a day before, 24 hours before, 36 hours before? Do you do weigh-ins the day of? Do you do weigh-ins right before the meet? Why not do them right before the meet to discourage all these crazy, cutting
Yeah, all
practices
the
out there?
water cuts. Yeah.
All these crazy water cuts. I don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
It's cheating. It's not cheating. It's
I kinda-
wise, but it's
yeah.
dangerous, and
I almost would agree with you that it's. I mean, it's like you said, it's not cheating because within the rules, just like people say sumo's cheating, it's not cheating. It's within
right,
the rules,
right.
But actually, my first few competitions were actually with USAPL because they have a 2-hour weigh-in, and I was like, "There's no way that I'm gonna ever try to cut like 20, 30 pounds before my meet and then try to gain it back." The way I cut weight is dieting, make sure I get my protein, and I do it over a 6 month, just like bodybuilders.
Yeah.
You diet down so
Yep.
that you can maintain your strength
Right.
too. You know, the one time I did a sauna cut before a meet, oh my gosh. First of all, I was an idiot. I was already super lean, but I woke up 187 after I did a small water cut from like 192. And I was like, man, I'm only four pounds away. So I went and tried to sit in the sauna. I was in there for 5 hours trying to cut this weight. And by the time I got to weigh-ins, I felt like someone beat the crap out of me with a baseball bat. And I was just standing there. I was so grumpy. People were trying to talk to me, tell me how ripped I was. And I was just like, yeah, leave me alone. I just want to weigh in so I could drink some water and friggin' eat these sweet potato fries. Because I brought my Eurovan, an air fryer, and a generator so that I can make an entire bag of sweet potato fries before this meet.
But during COVID and everything was outside.
Yeah,
He was
yep.
competing outside in the heat after a sauna cut.
It was rough. That was rough. But so I'll never do that again. And now with 100% raw, we offer 24-hour weigh-ins, but I always discourage people from doing these crazy, stupid water cuts because I just don't, unless you're an elite level lifter, I don't think that there's any reason for it. You know, just like if you want to come in and if you want to weigh in a little bit light and then try to refeed into it, fine, do that.
5 pounds light or like, be like 2.5% like lighter and then pig out after you make weigh-ins, but don't.
And that's the one reason I like it is because sometimes schedules don't line up, but you can also like go out to dinner the night before without having to worry about anything so that you can come into the meet super strong, and everyone has that opportunity. But yeah,
that's testing your real everyday strength.
Yes, exactly.
And, do you have commands? Mm-hmm. You have your own strength federation. Do you do commands? How nice would it be if you didn't have to listen to commands? You have to pause for 0.5 seconds or something. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah, and I think
it's up to you to do it, but you're not listening to commands. But I have to squat. I've got to show that I maintain, and then I've got to rack it. And then they can say you didn't do that.
Sure.
But that's something to consider.
Yeah.
Do you do commands? Do you have them, pause at the chest? Yeah, because otherwise they will bounce it. For the power lifts, it's like we have so much experience. Squats and deadlifts, squatting to depth is hard to judge, but we have that under control through many, through 7 decades of powerlifting now. And then deadlift, we know what's locked out and what's not. Deadlifts aren't too controversial.
Yeah.
But bench press, they just made a law, a new rule, what is it, IPF?
Yeah, it's the IPF.
IPF with arching, it was your elbows have to come down.
The elbow has to be below the top of the shoulder joint.
Yeah. So you can't have these crazy arches because every powerlifting fan, yes, we like an arch, but when you see these crazy examples, it's embarrassing for the field. You know, it's like it makes the sport look bad.
Yeah, because it's like an inch of range of motion.
Extortionate, was that
the Exorcist? Yeah, the Exorcist.
that are they're out here
it's
like
wild.
that much range, and you're like, okay, that's not a bench press. So it's like, okay, do you make them lay flat on the bench press? How much different would the records be if you actually had to lay flat and you couldn't arch?
Yeah.
But how would you judge that?
Exactly. Yeah.
And military press, that was actually Olympic lift. But guys started leaning back so much, it would look like an incline press. And somehow they wouldn't hurt themselves. Well, okay, we do military press. I don't like them leaning back. How do I judge it? Am I going to get a protractor out there?
Well, I think your rule about bringing your head through kind of disallows you to lean back too much, right?
Well, you could just go.
Yeah, I guess so, man.
It's hard to, so it's like, okay. In StrongLifting, I won't go over the power lifts because we follow basically with squats, bench, and deadlifts. Those are the first 3 lifts in StrongLifting. You do squats first. The first meet in Miami, we did hip thrusts. We went squats, bench, hip thrusts, military chin-up, deadlift last, or chin-up, military deadlift. And some of the girls were like, damn, I had more in me in the deadlift, and I feel like deadlift should go before hip thrust.
Well,
if you were going for the biggest totals, hip thrust should go first because it's the heaviest lift,
Sure.
But with most women. With the strongest powerlifters in the world can't hip thrust 1,000 pounds, but they can squat and deadlift 1,000. It's kind of funny. They can even with gear, you can bench 1,000 now.
Yeah.
But
So, since we are talking about commands, why don't we, like, you can briefly go through the squat, bench, deadlift commands just so people know what to practice for
Yeah,
this
sure.
Miami event, because that's what they'll be doing in the first session, and we'll have you take the second.
Yeah, sure. So I mean, it's going to be just like Brett said. It's going to be typical powerlifting calls. So for your squat, you're going to have 2 calls. You have the start command. So basically, you're going to get under the bar, you unrack the bar, you walk it out, and you make eye contact with the head judge. At that point, the head judge knows you're ready. He gives you the squat command. You squat, you go down, you come back up, and you hold it stationary so that they know that you're in control of the weight. And then they give you the rack command. So for squat, you have 2 commands.
But it's interesting because with squats, they don't say up. They don't wait for you to hit parallel and tell you up. You got to get parallel on your own. And
Right.
parallel's deeper than people think.
Yeah.
Yes.
People just think parallel means the thigh is straight. No, the hip has to sink deeper than the knee, or what's the official rule? The hip, the center of the hip.
The top of the knee has to be above the hip crease.
Hip crease.
Is what they say.
Yeah, and the hip crease is kind of confusing to people. So from the side view, when you're squatting down, your hips make a crease.
It's tough because especially when you have like
It's tough,
bigger
but
lifters.
then you think, you have people bash this, okay, you make a better rule. It's hard when you're in
Yeah.
charge. Like, I could do whatever rules I want, but it's hard to,
Hard.
yeah.
there will always be a at least a modicum of human error.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yep. So and that's just, I mean, unfortunately, that's how it is. But which like kind of goes with what you're talking about with the commands, especially for bench press. Like someone might pause it super short, and then
Judges call it.
exactly. And if they get a white light, but then you go longer and you miss your lift, then you're all pissed off because
Yeah.
you're like, oh, I shouldn't have paused it that
Paused so
long.
long,
And
yeah.
it's, you know, but even then you have judges who call really short pauses. It's like as soon as that bar hits the chest and
Yeah.
it might be motionless. They're
Right.
giving you the press.
I know.
And then others, you're like sitting there. It's like tea time. It's like they
Yeah.
forgot to give you the
I know.
command. You're like,
It makes such a difference.
yeah,
It's like a 10% difference, I feel like.
yeah. And it's, but
With,
it's so
with like
hard.
a judge who makes you pause for 2 seconds versus one that calls it right when
Yeah.
you touch your
Yeah,
chest.
yeah. So there's always going to be that human error.
What
But
are the
I'm a nice judge. I
Oh.
come down, press.
I
So
try
go over
to
the bench
be,
commands and the
yeah.
deadlift commands.
yeah, so okay, so for bench you have 3 commands. You're going to unrack the bar, and with raw you can have like your coach give you a lift off. It doesn't have to be one of the spotters and loaders, but you get the lift off. You unrack the bar. You hold it stationary. Your head, your shoulders, your butt are against the pad, and your feet are flat on the ground. You get the start command. You bring the bar down to your chest. You wait until the judge gives you the press command. You press back to the top, and then you wait there again to make sure that the judges know that you have control of the weight, and then they give you the rack command. So for bench, it's 3 commands.
Which, by the way, I don't care if they're on their toes or not. Why do your feet have to be flat?
That usually just depends on the federation.
I know, but like,
so yeah,
think about it. You make your own. Why do you care? You know, why do you care if they're on their toes or their feet are flat? Why do you care if their head comes up? If you bench it, you bench it. Who cares if your head comes up? I know for me, I'm stronger when I'm like this.
Sure.
And compared to when I'm flat.
Well, and a lot of guys have like internal rotation mobility issues in their shoulders, so you can watch. They're coming down and their head comes up,
Yeah.
and then they press and their head goes
Some
back
federations call that. You have to have your head flat.
down.
Others
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah, 100% raw and USAPL are both feet flat.
Feet flat and head testing.
Yeah, and head touching, which
Yeah.
and
But
USPA
for
is
me,
toes.
with StrongLifting, I don't make them. That's not a deal breaker for me. Real quick, you got to go over deadlifts, but when you create your own federation, you have to also think, what supportive gear do you allow? Like,
Yes.
raw means raw. But my
Yeah.
girls got so mad at me. I think the third one, I didn't allow belts, and they were so mad because I went through this realization. I'm like, wait, raw means raw, but then can you use chalk? You know,
Yeah,
like of
it's
course
out.
you can use chalk.
Can I wear
you
clothes?
Yeah, can you baby powder your thighs? It's like yeah, you have to go naked, like the Greek Olympic.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
So like you start thinking of this, and you're like, a belt. All these things. It's funny because they all help you give any joint artificial strength, and it raises your total. Because people are like, what's the most important joint in the squat? Well, think about it. If you wear a belt, you squat 10% more weight. If you wear like briefs, that's like artificial hip extension torque, you squat more weight. if you wear knee wraps, you squat more weight. Like any artificial,
Which I think
any elastic torque
Yeah.
that you provide, passive elastic assistance in any joint raises your lift. So they're all important. you
Yes.
know?
Yeah.
But anyway, do you allow knee wraps? Do you allow knee sleeves? Do you allow, it's like, do you allow ammonia? Do you allow, it's like, what do you allow?
Yeah.
And you have to think about that as your own federation. Like, how would you do yours? Raw means raw, but we're so used to belts now. I don't want to be the bad guy, but like no belts.
Yes.
But I did say
Yeah.
no knee wraps,
Yeah. Back
no
in-
wrist straps. Like strongmen, they wear
they can
wrist
use straps.
yeah, well, they use wrist straps
Right.
because they want to test their deadlifting strength, not your grip.
Yeah.
But I didn't allow those. I'm more influenced by powerlifting than strongman.
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, because strongman is more just like absolute power. It's like what is the because
But real quick on the flip side, I use a deadlift bar and I use bumper plates for all my competitions, and it's because I want more weight to be lifted.
Yeah.
And that's cheating. It's not cheating if that's the rules of
I was
your
gonna say,
federation.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
like you see that mural, there of Ashley Hodge. That's her first 405-pound pull. Look at the bumper plate. Look how wide the plates go all the way out to the
yeah, I
end.
see the bands on them.
The bands are holding it on. The plates.
saw that too, yeah.
So with the deadlift bar, it doesn't matter when you're like lifting 225. I feel like, but when
No,
you're
it
lifting
doesn't,
like
yeah.
405 or more, the bar bends. So using a straight bar, I suck using a stiff bar is hard for
Yeah.
me because I'm weak off the floor. It feels so heavy off the floor. In fact, I remember when I first had Ashley. We trained, she came in for her birthday. She came and visited me in Vegas when I moved to Vegas, and I had her train at a powerlifting gym. We did a stiff bar, and I think she hit 345. So she lost 60 pounds on her deadlift.
Wow. Yeah.
And now she's back up to like 405. She's capable of like a 425 stiff bar deadlift. But I wonder, it's like she's so into powerlifting now. I wanted to try a deadlift bar with bumper plates out to the ends like that to see what she could pull, because you never know. Some people are so disadvantaged with the stiff bar. I remember my client Ashton, he was like 17 when I started training him, and he could deadlift the same amount with a stiff bar and a deadlift bar.
Well, I
He
think
had
there
crazy
is some,
quad strength and crazy off the floor strength.
there's some English to be learned with the deadlift bar too.
Yeah,
like
you can
when I first started using it, I don't think there was much difference, but it like the
learning
growth
curve,
curve was
yeah.
like crazy. Yeah, because it was within 1 year that I crested 700 on the stiff bar, and then I think the most I've ever lifted on a stiff bar I think was 725. But then that summer I hit 750, and then in September was when I hit 805.
You hit the 805 with a deadlift bar.
Yeah, deadlift
Does
bar.
100% Raw use a deadlift bar?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we use deadlift bar.
I competed in 100% Raw way back in the day.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
We
yeah,
watched that
I was gonna
video.
say we watched that video. Yep.
You're like, look at him go.
I pulled my first 600-pound deadlift in.
Well, we're gonna have those
Looking
videos
back,
playing at the event in Miami.
they're
So.
not. Actually, I had a mohawk for my
Montage.
601.
Yeah,
My
yeah.
601, but I went by myself. It was in like, God, why can't I remember the city? It was in like Prescott or
Yes,
something. or-
that's what I want to say. Is because that guy Paul Gillot.
It's a
was
smaller
probably the meet
town in
director.
Arizona.
But
And
he
I
had a
remember
big facility, and you can see in your videos that it is a bigger facility, but it's not like a big gym. It's like a big open space.
But I went and like no one came with me. I have all these friends and family, and no one would. I went by myself.
Because it's like 2 hours north of Scottsdale, I think.
It was like
two
2 hour
and a half,
drive.
something like that. Yeah.
And I drove myself there.
It's beautiful
I
up there.
listened to a Rise Against the whole drive there, like to get in the mindset.
Yeah, yeah. And hey, it worked, right?
I pulled 601.
Yeah.
There you go.
I went on to pull 650. 605 for 5 is my best set for 5 with the deadlift bar, with bumper plates. But I almost got 675. Two different times I got it like, I'm a sumo puller, but I round back. It's so hard to lock it out.
Yeah.
But I don't have I don't have the hip mobility to be super upright or the quad strength. I mean, I can't squat for shit, so I can't squat the weight up like the top deadlifters in the world. They're
Yeah.
sumo pulling, but they're like so upright and they're squatting it up. I don't have that kind of
Yeah,
strength.
that's amazing.
Yeah,
So
their
I do-
erectors, their lateralis. Yeah.
Amazing.
So I do like a basically a wide stance round back conventional, but it's with a wide stance. It's a round back, and it's, I whip it off the floor, but then
Yes,
when you
exactly.
round with sumo, it's so hard to lock out.
Yeah.
And I got so close, and I watch it, and I'm like, why can't I just, that's a little hip
glutes.
thrust, just pop it. You're not in
Yeah.
position. You're not
Yeah.
you're fatigued by the time you get there, and you can't access your glute strength at the top like you can with conventional.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Anyway.
What are the deadlift commands?
Down. That's it.
Yeah, one deadlift command.
Yep, deadlift's the best because you just go up, you grip it and rip it, and then you wait for the down command. You put it down. So
And you don't slam it down or
yes,
drop it.
yes. So with the deadlift, you have to follow the bar down to the ground, which means it just means that you have to keep your hands on the bar until the weights come back in contact with the platform.
So I always tell my people, like, squat deeper in competition than you have to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Leave no doubt. Like don't leave
No
it up
doubt.
to the judges.
Don't leave it up to the judges. Squat deeper, pause longer on the bench press, and stand proud with the deadlift. You gotta look at the judge and be, I got
Yes,
this. You
yes.
got,
That's
chest up,
The biggest thing I see
hips
is
through
like
and put, chest up. Because people who train for glutes, my people, when you're just training for glutes, you'll like round a little, the upper back.
Yeah.
And you don't.
yeah, you feel that
You don't
connection,
pull the
you
chest
squeeze
up.
and then you go down.
Yeah.
Squeeze and go
You're
down.
just
Yep.
doing like a, you don't, and so there's always and funny because when a lot of the women I train, they can stiff leg what they can deadlift. They're used to taking the bar off the rack and then doing stiff legs with
Yeah.
it. It's really hard to go from the floor. Mm-hmm. See, when you first go from the floor, it feels so heavy.
Yeah, because there's no stretch reflex.
Yeah.
And that's
You're used to the stretch reflex, the
Yeah.
myotatic reflex, and you don't have that when you start from the floor. Mm-hmm. But
that's the only lift that you don't have, that and the chin ups. I guess the
thrust.
military press, there's no eccentric,
yeah,
and the hip thrust.
yeah.
So all of the second session,
Squat and bench is the only
So-
two.
yeah, that has it. Yeah. So let me back up and say it the opposite way. Yeah, but
So for military press, we had to learn, so we learned the best way to, all right,
Yeah, your
for a
turn.
military press, you take the bar out of the rack, all right? You flex your quads because you can't bend your knees. You can't do a push press. So flex your quads. Now, if you were just standing straight up, you would hit your chin. So what you have to do is squeeze your glutes like you do a hip thrust, kind of like push the hips forward, but not by bending back at the low back. Then you'll have low back pain over time. The military press is notorious for, it's hard on the low back. So you push the glutes forward, you don't arch the back.
Yeah.
So push the glutes forward and then pull the neck back, pull the chin back.
that chin,
Make a double chin. You do those two things, and now you can go straight up and not hit your face. Because if you're standing straight up, you'll hit your chin. So if you stand straight up, you'll see people do military press and they go around their face.
Yeah.
How are you going to be efficient going around your head? You can't be.
harder,
yeah.
So you have to push the hips forward, pull the chin back, push, 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 and then once you pass your head, you push your head through, push tall. Now, going along with this theme of if it's your own federation, do you make them, be in a strict military press? Can they do a split stance? I didn't really care if they want to do a split stance.
as long as there's no
As long as
movement
there's
in the knees,
no quad,
yeah.
no
And your
knee
feet
bend.
too, right? Like they can't be up on their toes because I see people do that.
Well, that's giving yourself a boost.
Yeah.
You can't. It's got to be strict. But anyway,
And the bar doesn't have to be.
so you have to touch your kind of like where like the
So it starts off
suprasternal
touching
notch is right here. It's got to kind of be like in that area, like touching the upper chest, and then you've got to lock it out, and then you've got to return under control. You don't just return it and slam it into the racks. You control it on the way down, then you rack it.
And lockout is elbows straight.
Elbow straight, and we push the head through, push tall.
Is there a down command?
Oh yeah, what are the
Is
commands?
there a start command and a down command? Okay, so there's two
For
commands.
military
for
press,
military
it could
press.
be the same. We've done it different, but
I like
press.
that. Yeah,
You could say down, rack, just like with bench press.
yeah, yeah. With curl, we used to do 3 commands like that and do curl, down, and then rack. And then recently we changed the rule to just be 2 commands where it's curl and then rack.
So real quick, TC does is involved in 100% raw, and they have a strict curl competition. And I have a funny little story to tell with that.
Yeah, let's hear it. I want to hear the story.
So I did the curl competition. I think I did a 155. I got to look back what it was. I just remember the record's probably crazy now. This was, I don't even know what year this was.
Probably pretty close to the inception. It was I think when I watched it, I want to say it was 10 years ago. And I think that we started doing the strict curl maybe 6 or 8 years before that. So it was still
probably
pretty relatively new.
Yeah, it was probably like 2013, 2012. No, it was before.
Yeah?
It was probably like, yeah, probably like 2012. I don't know.
That's
But anyway,
what I had in my head.
well, I
yeah.
could look it up. But anyway, all right. So we have
I'll look it up. You can tell. You can tell your story.
Bret Contreras.
Oh, is it a race? Where's my phone?
Yeah, it's a race. Well, you have a computer over there. You should be able to.
Powerlifting. YouTube. April 8th, 2013.
Oh my
There it
gosh.
So it was 11 years ago. We should watch it. Strict curl. Here it
Oh,
is.
and then I guess you did another one.
Okay. Strict curl. Look, I got a mohawk.
Yeah, second powerlifting.
137 pounds. Got it.
Nice. I love this.
143. Got it. Okay, so this is what we're talking about, this third lift.
Yeah, that was the video we watched.
I know. I've seen.
Yeah, third one, 156 pounds to break Arizona state record. I forgot about this. I got it. They said my back. So look at this. So right around here, right there. See that? I'm struggling. See that? God, missed this lift, butt came off the pad. I thought I hit it. I did not feel my butt come off the pad. So that was 156. Now, here's what's funny though. When I was like right here, you see it really slow down. I was gonna faint. Like I have this syncope. I'm like a fainting goat, okay? Whenever I deadlift, I get like, I put the weight down and I'm like seeing stars. I feel like I'm like 80% out. But I think I've only fallen once.
Oh, I've fallen a few
Oh
times.
my
But I only
gosh.
get half of my body. It's really weird. Only the left side of my body gets like dead. And then I try to hold myself over the right side of my body.
Do you ever like
But-
seize up?
Not like when I'm lifting, but like if I get to the top of the lift and I don't exhale until I get back down to the bottom, and then I stand back up, I'm like, oh crap.
Okay, so when you two live
Think it's-
together, I'll be around. Just
Well, you can't be working out because there's that one time in Arizona where I
I'll be
freaking fell
watching,
down
don't
and
worry.
she was working. We were the only two people in the gym, and I
What are
fell
you doing down there? Yeah.
No, she didn't even see me.
I watch him now.
Yeah.
I peek around the corner.
Another tangent, funny story. Allegra and Dom used to make fun of me because when I would lift, I would like do that whole like, you know, with the deadlift.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then they started doing it, and I'm like, oh!
that just means they weren't pushing hard enough yet. That's all that means.
Great.
They started doing it, and I was like, look who used to make fun of me for that.
So Bret did not pass out.
I didn't pass out, but here's the deal. In the curl, I get to here, and I'm like, oh my God, what do I do? Drop the weight? Like, I don't want to pass out, but I want to get it. I want to stick with it, but I'm going to faint. And I knew at that moment, if you could freeze from it, I knew if I passed out, well, someone was filming me from the stands, but I would have tried to squash it, but someone else would have been filming from the stands.
Yep.
And I would have been known. I would not have been the glute guy. I would have been the dude who passed out from a curl, and I would have had to change fields.
bicep
I would have
curl.
to be, a bicep curl. Dude passed out from a strict curl. I'd be laughed out of the industry. Like,
It just means you push.
I mean, I would have, and then just like, what would have happened? Like, the weight, I fall to the ground. Does the weight
yeah,
fall
there
on
are
me?
really spotters for curls.
Right.
I mean,
Is
you
there
have
a
two
rack? Is
motors.
there a-
There's just where you take the bar off.
Yeah.
But that's it.
So I would have been. It would have been like this ugly fall.
Yeah.
You know, what if I was like, and then it was like this ugly crash, and then like, you know,
The weight probably would have fallen on you.
Oh my gosh. Ugh.
and then,
Yeah.
and
those
you know,
calibrated plates are not kind
No.
when they touch bone. Oh my gosh, they hurt. So,
I would have been laughed out of the industry, and I would have had to find a new industry, a new career. But luckily, I didn't faint, and I'm still the
The
glue guy.
universe had different plans.
Yep. Yeah, we need you as the glue guy. So Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So we have the commands for
Wait,
the.
so we went over military press.
Yes.
Now, chin-ups.
Yeah, let's
What
hear
we
it.
realized was, well, with military press, it wasn't until the third StrongLifting competition where some of my girls started leaning back a little too much for my liking.
That's a good point.
Yeah, but it's like, what do I do? What do you do? How do you control that? You can't. Do you have them a wall 6 inches behind them if they touch the wall? Like, what do you do?
That might be a good plan, but then we were talking about how if you start to pull your head through and you start to lose control, you want to be able to bail on
I
the
know.
weight. Yeah, and if there's
It's
something
not an
behind
easy
you,
solution. Okay, now let's move on to the chin up. With the chin up, you see people do this. They're like, I got my first chin up, and they started from here. No.
Oh,
A
yes.
chin up is from a dead hang.
yes,
So, I would always, it's funny, I loved these strong lifting meets because I was like, okay, I'd help them, I'd help them get the weight through. I'd pick the weight up for them. I'd adjust, because sometimes the dip belt kind of digs in. You want it in the right position.
Yes.
And then I'd chalk their hands. I'd be like, okay, you got this. And then they'd go and they'd start from a dead hang. So you wait, and then it's like, go or whatever, pull. And then you gotta touch your chest to the bar. In the beginning, we never did, because it's called a chin up, like meaning you gotta get your chin over the bar, but no. They have a chin up competition. I've seen clips, and it's like, they just get to like here. I hate that. You gotta touch your chest to the bar. It's like a military press. You have to touch here. Same thing with a chin up. You start from a dead hang, and what we found was we start doing like a little kip, like push through and then slingshot back. And then I realized that was cheating. Now, here's the thing with chin ups. You get towards the top, and you start kicking. And some of the girls, it was like crazy. Like they'd get to here and they'd be like, huh, huh, huh.
Yeah.
And it was like hard to watch. It was like kicking like 8 times, and then they'd get it. That's ugly. So you make them be in a plank. They have to be in a plank, and they can't deviate from that. Well, what I kind of settled on is that you could allowed one kick.
One kick.
Again,
Use it
if you
wisely.
make your own rules, it's hard to think of this on your own. So one kick, and then you. I think they did this in CrossFit where they'd put chalk on the bar, and you'd have to show, you'd see that the chalk touched your upper chest. But yeah, it should be called a chest up because you got to touch,
sure.
So that's the chin up.
Is there rules for like?
And then
can
control
they-
yourself on the way down.
Oh,
Don't just
yes.
fall. Control yourself on the way down. And then with the hip thrust is the hardest to judge.
Wait, with the chin up, are you allowed to bend your knees, cross your feet, or are you
Yes.
just okay? You are. Just one
Yeah.
kick.
And then is there a down command?
Yeah. Or what are the
Chin up.
commands?
I haven't had the command because it's like you either
You do or you don't.
you touch your chest
Yeah.
or you don't.
Sure.
Yeah, but it's like really hard to like hold it there. Like,
Well, that's what I was thinking is okay, so you can kick to get to the bar, but then if you're unable to hold it there, did you really have the strength to get there? So, but if there's one kick, I don't
And
know.
you like kick up and then come back down.
it
Yeah.
doesn't happen like that. It's usually like,
You don't do chin ups, Chris.
yeah, it's like, you're about right here, and then you like kick one time and then good, and I give
Epic.
the like you got it, and then they control it and then down. But
So that's almost like a down command. Tell
but it
them you
hasn't
got
been
it.
so strict. Like it's been so
yeah.
it's up until this point. There's been some leeway, some flexibility because it's like I know if you get the chin up or not, but
Sure.
you have to make it more streamlined. So then, yeah, hip thrust is the hardest because it's weird. When I do a hip thrust, it's like, okay, I've hip thrusted 800 and I got 810 or 820. Was it 810 or 820? Back in like 2015 era, right? Like,
Wow.
I think it was like 2015. I was the strongest ever with barbell hip thrust, okay?
That was my next question. Barbell?
So yeah, it was on hip thruster 2.0. So yeah, 800-pound hip thrust. But then I think I got 810. But yeah, with the 810, it's not coming up. I think it was like 2015. So, God, it was 9 years ago. Yeah, I was hip thrusting 3 times a week. My program was hip thrust heavy, like pyramid one day, just straight barbell. Then another day I did straight bands. But I would bruise on my hips from these bands.
Yeah.
I would have the black, what is it, the monster, what was it, the
Sure.
black thick one.
Yeah.
I would have the black and then a blue, I think. I feel like it was like 600 pounds of tension.
Yeah, that's
at
a
the top.
lot. Those thick bands are freaking.
It was
You
so
know,
much.
heavy.
I would be bruised the next day, but I would
Yeah.
do hip thrusts with just pure band resistance. But it was like crazy
Yeah,
tension.
which is why your lockout is so strong.
Yeah, and
There
then
you
because
go.
you'll always be limited by your lockout, which we'll talk about in a second. Remind me
Okay.
about the assistance lifts. Okay, so then the third day I would do bar plus band, but it was real strict. You know,
Sure.
I wasn't going so heavy. I was really trying to feel the lockout. But I was hip thrusting 3 times a week, and that was what got me to the 800. But the 800 I did was a legit lockout. The 810 or 815 or 820, I didn't quite lock it. It was good enough for social media. Everyone thought I locked it out, but I felt it all in my hamstrings.
Okay.
And I was arched a little bit. And I knew I had like a few more inches to push. It just,
Sure.
it looked like it was, you know, when you lock it on up, but it makes you angry. Like if you get called with squat depth, but it's like there are 3 judges. It's hard with hip thrusts. It's like, so I realized the way people cheat with hip thrusts, okay, they can scoot back on the bench. They can slide back. Okay, so now you're not allowed to slide back on it. It makes it easier. You can get up to a certain height, and then you kind of bow down under, and like, it's like you're not doing the scoop method. You're like, you get up to here, and then you can't do it, so you like,
Oh,
you
okay.
pretend like you're posterior pelvic tilting, but you're not. You're just, so your bar height doesn't go high enough.
Sure.
And then there's like, you know, with the chest up that you don't really get the bar height. You're not really, you're just, chest is up and you're like to
Yeah.
here. but
Hyperextending the low back.
if you had the glute strength, you would pop up higher. You
Yeah.
could pop up higher. So you have to get full hip extension, and you know it when you see it. So what I realized was, what we do is the proper hip thrust form. It's like hinge method, like hinge, like 85% of the way up. Then the lockout, pelvic tilt to show that like you're level. You got this level, you know, and you can tell when you see it. It's just hard to judge. It's hard. Well, you got to be experienced, and you have to know what a proper hip thrust is, and you can't. People get really mad.
Yeah.
Hip thrust. So what I said earlier: squat deeper, pause longer at the chest during bench, stand proud with the deadlift. With military and chin, be honest. Start, finish.
Yes.
And with hip thrust, lock it out better. Like
Yeah.
push taller. Don't lie to yourself.
Yes. Don't.
So many
like,
people
eat
lie to
them.
themselves with hip thrusts. They're like, I hip thrust 800.
Yeah.
If you made them get a full lockout, they'd be doing 600.
Yep.
Yes. That end is so difficult.
Yes. Yep.
That's
Especially if you haven't
different.
like trained it specifically.
Yes.
I think it's really difficult.
And
Yes.
most men,
Train for the lockout
Yeah.
on the thrust.
most powerlifters, what makes them good at the power lifts, like you and I, okay, you have deadlifted 805. I have deadlifted 650. I don't even want to say my squat. 455. It's embarrassing. You've squatted what?
650.
650.
Yeah.
So deep down, you have way stronger quads, but you have stronger glute strength for me in a stretch position, deep down in hip flexion. But I probably have stronger end range hip extension strength than you.
Oh yeah.
Like I could probably hip thrust more than you.
Yeah.
Even now,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
but
100%.
it's just my hip geometry.
Yeah.
I remember looking at this study by Scott Delp from years, like I think it was published in the 90s, if I'm not mistaken, but they showed the effect of moving the hip joint center 2 centimeters in every direction. So up, down, left, right, and then diagonal in each direction. And if you moved the hip joint center like, you know, up and to the right 2 centimeters, you were way stronger in hip flexion. And you moved in the opposite direction, down and to the left, you were way stronger in hip extension. But I must have a particular hip joint geometry where my hip joint center is in a different place than yours. So you're stronger in deep you're stronger at hip extension and deep hip flexion, and I'm stronger at end range hip extension.
Sure, sure.
And so, because my glutes aren't bigger than yours, but I can hip thrust more.
Yeah.
And not just hip thrust more, it's all the lifts that require end range hip extension strength. If we did that back extension, I'm a little stronger than you at it, you know. But you benefit from getting stronger at the hip thrust, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, which brings me to my next point: how to train for it. So, it's probably the most important part of the podcast.
Wait, before you get there, are there commands for the hip thrust?
It's just, you know, you go when you're ready, and then you call
lock
the
it
lockout.
out.
Yeah, you say down when they
Yeah.
locked it out. But
Okay.
sometimes it makes them so mad because they're like, and they're looking at me and
They're
they
grinding.
get
for
mad
it.
because they feel like, but you know you didn't. People get so mad and
Well, it's like locking a deadlift out with rounded shoulders.
Yeah.
And then they're looking at
No.
you. They know in their head.
they know,
I
yeah.
can't pull my shoulders back, and
Right.
that's why I stopped.
I don't
here.
have it. You don't have it,
Yeah.
right.
But then
But
they're
they
still
look
gonna be
at
mad at
my-
the judge when you get a red
I'm
light.
the judge. 'Cause
Yeah.
I've been the judge, and
Yep.
they're like, it's funny because I've had.
Oh
My
no.
girls will go off on me. I've had Dominique.
Yeah, they'll tell you
In
how they
Miami,
really
Miami, Dominique's like, I held it for, and I'm like, you didn't lock it out. And anyway, she gets it. She goes, you're the worst coach ever, and storms off. Some heated, you know, you get some people at their top strength. They're edgy. They're,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
you
They
got
go
more
to that place.
Yeah.
cortisol, more adrenaline, more.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but yeah, so I don't take it personally.
You're in competition mode.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And everyone has a different competition mode, by the way. It's very
Yes.
interesting to see.
I know.
Some people sniff ammonia and get really worked up. Some
people
people
get
go in their
calm,
head.
yeah,
Yep.
calm
And that's
themselves.
me. I put music on. I'm in my head. Sometimes I'll get like emotional, like a little
Okay.
teary because I'm going there. But
So this is so relevant. What we realized training at 2020,
Yeah.
I wish I could show you clips of, imagine, okay, especially with touch and go deadlifts. With like, we would have 315. Ashley got it for 18 reps.
wow.
You know, Dominique got it for like 12 reps or something. But imagine 30, well, like say 15 girls cheering you on.
Yeah.
And you have we all have our PR songs. We have our own playlist with everyone's PR song. So at the StrongLifting competition, you knew their PR song. So you would put the song on. I would have someone in charge of music putting your own PR song. How cool is that?
Yeah.
So anyway, while you're training, imagine the music blaring, you know, and all these cheering people. Come on, especially with repping out with touch and
Yes,
go.
yeah.
Touch and go is a different beast. You
Yeah.
know, it almost feels like a hip thrust with the deadlift bar and bumper plates and touch and go.
Yes.
It almost feels like you're hip thrusting.
Yeah.
And if you can bounce symmetrically, it's all about having a symmetrical
Oh,
bounce.
yeah.
Because if you touch down one side first, you're all off
Yeah.
and
Oh,
Yeah.
it's
yeah,
not
awful.
in synchronicity. But when you're, and you got all these, people, come on. And we'd have these crazy deadlift rep feats. And then, you know, it was like, so proud of them. You're posting them. And then they're like, Coach, I feel like I'm beat up for like 9 days after that.
Yes.
You learn.
What happens when you party?
Yeah.
I feel like, cool. I just deadlifted 315 for 18 reps, and now I can't.
Your body reminds you for the rest of the week.
For like 2 weeks, they're not back, and it fucks up your training.
Yeah.
So we've learned a lot.
Yeah.
We've learned a lot. So Pavel Satsulin called it training on the nerve, you know? So what is funny, Carly started doing was training early in the morning, no caffeine, no music, like just quiet and not so psyched up, just calm lifting, you know? And so we started chilling out and not save that for the meet.
Sure.
You know, save the energy drinks and the psyched up, the pacing around, the listening to the music. Don't train year round like that. It's too much.
Yeah.
You know, and I think so many people
Interesting.
train like that year round. They need, you know, the two
Like-
bangs before they go into lift. Like Ashton, the younger generation. Ashton would be like, I had 1,000 milligrams of caffeine.
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
Oh my.
How are you even going to sleep?
Yeah.
Ever.
And yeah,
Yeah.
They always have to have the younger generation have to have their headphones playing their song.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're so psyched up, and I think it hinders your gains.
Yeah.
When you always train like that, think about training like that 4 days a week, always to every PR, it's a little bit too much, in my opinion.
Well,
And
it
it might
keeps you
matter
on
your
edge
age and
manually
experience
too.
level
Yeah,
too.
sure, yeah, and like what you're used to as well, you know. But and then also how you use it. But like, shoot, man, yeah, people like constantly talk about, oh, I had just had my third scoop of pre-workout. I'm like, what? What are you doing that you need that much caffeine? It blows me away. So, I mean, I have 200 milligrams
Me
before
being
I start
guilty-
working out.
Me being guilty over here with my 4 energy drinks a day.
Target.
Well, you're going all the time.
Me being
man.
really silent. Yeah,
And
right?
then you go home and use the rest of that caffeine on all your research.
I know.
Reading the
I
studies.
know.
Yeah.
So back to the training.
Yes.
So what we found was with squat and deadlift assistance lifts. Okay. Well, Glute Lab San Diego is not as big as here. I've got everything. I've got every piece of equipment here in Fort Lauderdale. It's 4,500 square feet. But Glute Lab San Diego is 1,800 square feet. We don't have a leg curl, and well, we have the plate-loaded leg extension, but it's like we didn't do a lot of like squats twice a week. Ideally, you train the lifts twice a week. So we went through different eras, different phases. Like the first meet, I remember it was like 1 day bench press, 1 day close grip bench, you know, and it's like, then, you know, the second meet, the training changed a little bit. And if you get your StrongLifting certification, it's $299?
Yeah, $299.
$299. I'm asking you guys, and you know it because you've been on the website. It's $299, and it takes you through all the programs. You have all the programs, and it's funny because I don't. If you know me, I don't. How often do I promote my stuff on my page? But I will speak confidently about the StrongLifting cert because it has continuing education credits.
I was gonna say I think it's 0.8 NASM, which not NASM CEUs, which the only reason I know that's because my cert is through NASM.
Yeah, we have NSCA, ACSM,
Yeah.
NASM,
Yeah, it's got
all the
all of
main,
them, yeah.
all the main certs. But this is something you will actually use. You have the actual programs we used, and it's all so practical. You know, people are like, Brett's a scientist, it's going to be all scientific. I don't have references in that. It's all the programs we used and like anecdotes, and it's so detailed as to the training methods we used. And these are, I feel like, I'm pretty sure I have the strongest all-natural female gym in the world, San Diego. I would say there's no gym that's all-natural that is stronger than us, than my girls. And it's funny because people on the internet like to think, oh, he just gives hip thrusts and like bands. No, we are strong at squats, deadlifts, bench, chin-ups. Like we are strong at everything. It's annoying because why do they think, like, do some research about me before you bash me and label me
like
as...
we were talking about. Just bashing gets your likes and views and stuff. It's
I have the strongest all-natural female gym in the world. I think. I sure did like 4 years ago. I know.
Well, I've heard you make that assertion before, and if no one's come out to you and said, no, I think we are, like, you know.
Maybe some gym in Russia will be like,
yeah. Hey, you're welcome to come to Miami.
Miami.
June 1st.
we will crush you. But, you know, it'll be fun. But anyway, yeah, so we didn't do a lot of squat and deadlift assistance lifts. It was like, all right, we'll try to do deadlifts. I feel like it's hard to, well, so we went through our phases. We went through I remember one competition we did like a lot of chains and bands.
Yeah.
But you can't program that to the masses. How many people have bands and chains?
Yeah.
But it's funny, with like military press, we'd still use bands, but we wouldn't go double loop it all the way to the ground. We'd put a T-thing, what do you call that? Like the T-thing in the rack, halfway down.
Yes.
We'd loop it around halfway down so it wasn't as much tension, you know, because if you double loop even a Monster Mini all the way around, it's too much.
The rack's going to flip over.
But like even with chin-ups, like we learned you could do banded chin-ups. You could loop a band through a 45-pound plate and put it around your neck, and it doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
Or you could get chains situated right to where standing, it's just on the floor, and then as you pull up, you lift all the chains off the floor. You just have to have a lead, a follower chain or whatever to the ground.
Sure.
We use chains, we use bands on all the lifts.
So very similar, like accommodating resistance that
Yeah,
you use on
but the thing is,
big
accommodate
compounds.
like West Side does all bands and chains. The raw lifters do all specificity. We combine the best of both worlds, and you can recover from that. You could recover because the band and chains, they're not as hard in the stretch position. They're harder at the lockout. And so it doesn't beat up your body, and it doesn't, not from a muscular standpoint, from a fascia and connective tissue standpoint, it doesn't, and from a systemic, like it doesn't seem to beat you up. You're not beat up the next day from those lifts. So we realized we could do the lifts twice a week, but one day, specificity, traditional raw lift, one day with bands or chains. And that works well too, if you have that. But anyway, in general, we would do squat for your squats, okay? We might throw in a single leg lift for like a step up, a lunge, or a split squat, okay? For deadlifts, it's hard to deadlift twice a week, so it could be light, stiff, like not with progressive overload, just focusing on the stretch, and then your competition style deadlift one day of the week, all right? I should mention, I would say take 10 women. 4 of them, 4 or 5 would prefer conventional, 4 or 5 will prefer sumo, but one of them, 1 out of 10, prefers semi-sumo. And it doesn't get talked about enough, but there were a few girls who, when I taught them semi-sumo, they set like 30-pound PRs. It's like...
That was Ed Cohen's stance.
Yeah.
Like, I call it the frog stance deadlift.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a big lifter right now. His name is, oh man, actually, I don't know what his name is. I know what his Instagram name is. It's SSJ Bob. I think it's Bob Matthews. I want to say that's his name, but he deadlifts like that. And it's crazy. They look so super secure in it. And it's
Yeah,
just,
it looks beautiful.
yeah.
But anyway, okay, so not much squatting assistance lifts and not much deadlift. We might do the 45-degree hyper with a dumbbell. And my girls got to where they're doing 100-pound dumbbells, for 20 reps.
Wow.
You can do it. I always, when I train people the first time, they're like, they grab a 35. That's like the standard weight, and they're proud of it. And I'm like, grab the 50, grab the 60. What? It's hard to hold on to at first, but
Yeah.
you can do it. But anyway, interestingly, so for bench press, and you're doing bench in military, trying to do it twice a week, or like, say you're trying to press heavy 3 times a week, it's hard to do a lot of extra stuff. You theoretically, you want to be doing dips, you want to be doing close grip, you want to be doing military, you want to be doing seated shoulder press, incline. You can only press hard, and like push-ups we mentioned are good assistance lifts, but it's like you can't throw in like 2 presses twice a week or 1 press 3 times a week. Maybe if you do a press on Monday, a press on Wednesday, 2 presses on Friday, you could get away with it, but you can't just... And I always say women recover quicker from presses than men. That's in the research. But we didn't do a lot of extra stuff. We didn't do a ton of front delts. We didn't do a ton of tricep work. But what we did do assistance lifts were for the hip thrust and the chin up. We did tons of lockout work for the hip thrust because it doesn't beat you up as much, but you will always be limited. Hip thrust, everyone can get it halfway up.
Yeah.
So there are kind of 2 strategies. You could build more power into the hip thrust, the bottom, to accelerate you through the lift, but you got to hit that lockout. You
Yes.
need to be doing lockout work. So probably 50% of our volume for hip thrust was lockout work in the form of pause reps or bar plus band. We did lots of bar plus band work. So you have the glute loops around the barbell. So you had because you knew your PRs with regular hip thrusts, you knew your PRs with pause hip thrusts, and your PRs with bar plus band hip thrusts. And then we do abduction, not because it helps with strong lifting. We do upper body and lower body abduction. So upper body shoulder abduction builds the lateral delts. They look badass.
Yeah.
And lower body abduction, hip works the glute medius, the shelf.
Yep.
You want lifters to be confident.
Yes.
They don't transfer biomechanically, they transfer psychologically. If you love your physique and you feel badass and you have your singlet on and you feel like, because how many times, it's crazy. How many times you go to powerlifting competition and you're like, these people are doing squats and deadlifts and they have no glutes.
Yeah.
How do they not have glutes? They're doing squats and deadlifts. They're focusing on squats and deads. And you go to a local powerlifting meet, it's like 50% of the people have no glutes. And my girls have better glute development than these powerlifters. And
Oh yeah, easy.
yeah.
I think abduction and adduction really transfers a lot to the squat actually, because it keeps your knees exactly where they're supposed to be tracking and allows the other primary movers to do what they're supposed to be doing. And I think it's very often overlooked in a lot of powerlifters training. Like they just don't, they say good girl, bad girl machines, but like you don't really see a lot of them on there. And I've gotten a lot of, and then your sumo deadlift, you're going to get from the adduction and from the abduction too, I guess, because you have the external rotation factor if you're a sumo deadlifter. So, and then like, even if you're conventional, yeah, you still want the external rotation, screw your legs into the ground, and you want that glute activation. So yeah, I would even argue that abductions can definitely transfer to, at least the squats and deadlifts, and actually the bench press too. I've been realizing that the stronger and more stable my hips are, and the more connected my glutes with my abs become across my pelvis, the more stable my bench press is becoming too. So yeah, it's
Well, I'm not going to be like, telling the best powerlifters in the world, bro, you need to be doing abduction.
Sure,
abduction.
yeah.
But yeah, I do think if you're weak at it, how could it not help? Anytime you're really weak at something, it will help you. But we do abduction mainly for the psychological factor, but we do, as I mentioned, we do a lot of hip thrust lockout work because it doesn't beat you up,
Sure.
doesn't interfere with the squat and the deadlift. Interestingly, Carly and myself, we were doing so much band hip thrust, just bands, it actually gave us sore knees.
Wow.
Yeah, like patellofemoral pain. We had to back off from that.
Huh. Go figure.
huh? Yeah, that's very weird.
It's like people think hip thrusts are mainly glutes. It does work the quads a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So look out for that.
But we were doing like crazy band tension.
Yeah, I was going to say.
So, with the upper body, we ended up doing a lot of assistance lifts. We didn't do a lot of extra tricep work or like front delt work, but we did do biceps work and we did rows. Not just any row, typically inverted rows. We felt it makes sense that like inverted rows are going to help you with your chin up strength because it's an upper body weight row, And so we do inverted rows and we do curls. And the girls had never done, a lot of them had never done curls before. And I have them doing like barbell curls and their chin ups went through the roof.
Sure.
So I feel like, yes, do your curls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Curls for the girls? No, curls for the boys. Do your curls.
Yeah.
And watch your chin up go up, and it's interesting because I would say 9 out of 10 people with their chin up strength, they're lacking. They can get it up to here, they can't lock it out. But there's like 1 in 10, I've only had a couple clients where they really have poor initiating strength. So they have trouble, like if they could get to here, they can lock it out. But they have trouble initiating the chin up. And that's easily solvable by just doing a ton of scapular shrugs. You can just do them separately, where you just hang and you're just moving your scaps, like basically
Depression,
downward rotation and upward rotation, of the scapulae. And then, or you can do like 1 1/4, like they do a rep and then you do a scapular shrug, like in between each rep.
Sure.
You could do those with pull downs too. But what I will tell you is we start doing heavy pull downs, supinated. We have that mag grip. It's just
I love those mag grips.
yeah, so we do supinated pull downs. And, I feel like, here in Fort Lauderdale, the girls, it's just common, 50, 70 pounds. Like, they don't typically go heavier than like 70 pounds. And in San Diego, I remember Carly doing the stat, 200-pound pull downs. My girls got strong at pull downs, but with these assistance lifts, whatever you're trying to get it to transfer to, like, one thing I've always preached is if you're trying to get something to transfer to your deadlift, say you're doing hip thrusts or back extensions, while you're doing them, envision your deadlift. Envision your deadlift while you're doing the hip thrust. I feel like I would love to do a study. How cool would that be? One group not visualizing and the other group visualizing, Visualize the lift. So when you do pull downs, pretend it's a chin up. Like even close your eyes and pretend you're doing a chin up. You'll notice your form tends to mimic the chin up a little bit better.
Sure.
Because they're open and closed chain counterparts, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, we got really strong at pull downs too. So anyway, interestingly, we just did more accessory work for the chin up and the hip thrust, and not as much because squat and deadlift there's overlap, bench and military there's overlap. You can't do that much more and still recover from them.
Right.
But you can't do every exercise in the world. You
Yeah.
can't. You gotta limit it somehow. So
Exactly.
Well, it sounds like your girls had a great foundation, and then this was kind of almost more of like a peaking cycle for this specific competition style.
yeah, but
Is that-
then okay. So yes, the first one especially. It's like they gained so much strength in 6 weeks. Then
Yeah, because of the specificity.
Yeah, because of specificity with 1 rep maxing. Then 2 months later, and here's the thing, we're posting our videos. My girls are all happy with their strength, and then if you ever post a hip thrust 1 rep max, oh my God, that Haley I mentioned earlier, that was Katie Saunier's
Yeah.
previous coach, like we're on her team, she will post her hip thrust 1 rep, and it goes viral, and she gets so much hate. It's like 90% of men, fucking worthless, literal waste of time, doesn't do anything.
Oh,
Well, that's what I said earlier. I wish women became bullies. And anytime a man posts themselves doing a 1 rep max, literally does nothing. Literally. I don't know what the word literally. No one in this new generation knows what the word literally
Yeah, I've
means.
noticed that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, so literally does nothing. Nothing. It's like you could just sit at home.
Might as well have not done it.
You could sit at home on the couch or do a 1 rep max and you'd have the same physique.
Yeah.
Like, obviously it does something. But it's like they're so stupid. It's like they think that's all we do. Like, we were doing sets of 10, sets of 5. Powerlifters don't just do singles.
yeah.
Well, the good ones anyway.
Yeah, they do sets of 6, sets of, triples. They don't
They
just
should
do.
be doing 8 to 12 too. You
Well,
know?
especially off season.
Yeah.
So, by the way, that leads me to my next topic. What did I do wrong? You want to
Yes,
ask it?
let's talk about. Yes, Brett, tell us, or what did you learn, were there mistakes made with the training style? What advice would you give based off of that?
This is hard for a coach to, talk about and admit.
Of course, yeah.
I've made a lot of mistakes as a coach, but I feel like, TC, how long would you say, back in the day, 20 years ago, the average lifespan, the average career span of a powerlifter?
I want to say Ed Cohen was around for a good decade or so.
At least, right? Like,
Yeah.
and the strongmen back then, they were around for like 10 solid years. And nowadays, I feel like it's more like 3 years.
Yeah, there are a couple that have been around, like Taylor Atwood. He's in his 30s. He's been around for a while, like Russell Orihi. But, yeah, the vast majority of them, like, kind of come and go.
And I've talked about this before. It's greed. It's greed. You can push so hard. You can gain so much strength in a 3-year period. And then your body breaks down.
Yeah.
You can't, and no one talks about this, you can't just keep doing progressive overload, PRs every week on squats, bench, deadlifts. You can't. Your body breaks down. You get that low back injury, then you hurt it again.
I'm here to
Or your
tell you.
knees or your hips. But typically the low back, shoulders in the bench press, squats, it could be knees, it could be hips, it could be low back. Deadlift, it's typically low back, or if you strain a hamstring, if you tear a muscle. But like, it's greed. You can push yourself so hard. And then also in the non-natty, sphere, trenbolone. Everyone's talking about tren makes you gain this crazy strength. Well, I haven't seen research on this, I don't think. I wonder, I'm sure research is out though. The way I was always told back in the day was steroids get your muscles stronger, but not your connective tissue.
It helps your
tendons or-
muscles grow faster
your-
than your tendons and ligaments.
Muscle
can
strength
keep up
grows,
with. Yeah.
can kind of out. That's why bodybuilders tend to be really strict, and you don't see bodybuilders trying to squat 1,000 pounds. You
Except
know,
Ronnie Coleman.
So Ronnie Coleman.
Yeah.
His one regret is he didn't.
Yep.
He could have got 800 for
One more
one or
rep.
two more reps. Yeah,
Yeah.
like, but what a legend.
Yeah.
I watched his videos so many times back in the 90s. But anyway, or like 2000, right around that era. But I pushed my girls too hard. We were having so much fun, but I should have said, I mean, it's a learning experience. I should have
Right.
said, we're having a 6-month off season. We're only going to compete once or twice a year. But also, it's like, I didn't realize how competitive they'd get, which I like, but cause I'm like, why? You could compete, like, look at the old time strongmen. They competed every day. Like, the old time strongmen would lift every day, but they wouldn't go crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, you could do a powerlifting meet more often, but if you're so adamant about setting
Yeah.
PRs,
Yeah, it can't
well, I
be
taught
RP
them.
10.
I taught them all about PRs, and they became all about PRs.
Yeah.
But I wasn't. I didn't have a 10-year plan or a 20-year plan. It's like, so now I'm in Fort Lauderdale, and I don't push them as hard with the big lifts. We do have so many machines here. So now I'm trying to, you know, I have had to teach my San Diego squad, chill out a little bit. You can gain, just think of movement patterns and like, we could do belt squats with and without a band. The pit shark,
Yeah.
with straight weight and bands. You can do, focus on the leg press, focus on a different style of, you know, Ed Cohn would do high bar, right? Fred Hatfield would do Hatfield squats, like, but you would do different types of different variations, being more strict, not, you know, try to build the different, you know,
Yes.
if you're conventional, do sumo or vice versa. Build your close grip, build your you know, have a cycle with bench press where you put your feet up on a bench.
Yeah. Or you just do dumbbells. You don't
do
touch the
dumbbells
barbell.
for a
You
while,
only
yeah.
do dumbbell press.
Dumbbells, dumbbell bench one day and push-ups another day, like weighted push-ups or something. Like you know, don't
Yeah.
always be doing the big lifts year round. I remember when DUP got popular back in like 2015-ish. It's funny because all the guys pushing it were getting injured too. I remember going to one of the guys, I was like, so there's like 5 guys in the industry pushing DUP and all 5 are injured. And he's like, you can't go by that. And I'm like, yeah, I can. That matters to me.
Yeah.
You're all injured. But I was never injured until I started squatting 3 days a week. I started developing knee pain. I never had knee pain my whole life. I had a client who never had hip pain, never had FAI until she always squatted twice a week. She never got femoral acetabular impingement syndrome until she started squatting 3 days a week. Then she'd get this crazy hip pain, you know, and then funny because we had to learn, like, even with her boyfriend having sex with her, putting her legs up, I even talked to my girls about that. I'm like, don't, like, they're like, my hip hurts. I'm like, even sex can irritate that. Your low back too. Like, you have to think about that stuff.
Yeah.
Don't be doing crazy. I'm always like, don't be doing crazy sexual positions when your low back is hurting, you know?
Yeah.
'Cause
You gotta take care of yourself. Yeah.
you have to think about that stuff. Don't be doing drunken feats.
Yeah.
Don't
They're
ever,
twerking.
don't ever, yeah,
What about
twerking.
Twerking.
Twerking, yeah. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
my client Julia, the one I told you about, she loves to twerk. You know, she's Brazilian and just loves to twerk. And I'm like, don't twerk so much. She's like, Coach, I can't. So we've had to modify her training.
Any promises.
Yeah, no promises. But there's so much fun.
Yeah.
You got to have a coach, you know, and then you ignore the coach and it's, don't tell coach. Don't tell coach I was twerking.
Yeah.
But don't
It's
do
about
any
balance,
drunken,
though,
don't
you know?
race someone when you're drunk. Don't have a sprinting
Yeah.
when you're drunk.
Advice.
Yeah.
Will pull a hammy. But, you know, it's like you got to think about all these things. But anyway, we had so much fun. What I would do differently and what I do differently now is now I don't just focus on your squat PR. Like I said, here in Fort Lauderdale, we have their squats. We have our squatting variations. We have our single leg squatting motions, which are basically, I don't give pistols a lot, but we give lunges, split squats, step ups, and even skater squats
Oh, yeah.
with like ankle weights and stuff, like
Yeah.
holding on to a bar. But anyway, we do all those. But you have the lever squat machine, you have the Smith machine, you have the belt squat, you have the hack squat, you have the pendulum squat, and you have the leg press. Try to get strong at all those. And then rotate them around, but all those matter. They all feed into the squat. It will prolong your career. We have the deadlift. We have your single leg deadlifts, which I've always never been a fan of like barbell single leg RDLs. But we have the pit shark. We have the hammer strength. That you have more stable deadlift patterns. You can do it off one leg. You
Yeah.
can do.
I like a landmine for your single leg RDLs too.
I like holding on to something.
Yeah.
So doing one arm, but it's hard. But I just started doing the hip supported. I posted that on Instagram.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that.
The hip supported feels great for me. Some people might like B stance, but get strong at different deadlift patterns. So you have all your deadlift variations. You have your good morning variations, but you also have hamstring exercises. Get strong at Nordics. Get strong at back extensions and maybe reverse hypers. But I don't push the reverse hyper like I used to. But you can do different hamstring movements and get strong at those. And I think whenever I'm super strong at deadlifts, my leg curl strength is. I'm also doing like leg curls and Nordics, and like glute ham raises and stuff. So don't just focus on your deadlift. Focus on all that.
Yes.
For hip thrust, we do the hip thrust, the standard hip thrust, which is, I should mention, it's off a 15-inch bench, 35.5 centimeters.
That
You
is
got to
definitely
practice
impressive.
for that.
Yes.
You have to have the right bench height. If you're
Yes.
practicing from too high or for too low, it'll throw you off.
So different. Yep.
So if you are doing hip thrusts, you have your barbell hip thrust, you have your pause hip thrust, you have your bar plus band hip thrust. And if you have a hip thruster, it's easy to touch the bands. But now you have Smith machine hip thrust, you have all the hip thrust machines, the glute drives, the thruster pros. So we have the BC Strength Thruster Pros here. Right, you have your records of that, but we also have the hip thruster 3.0. We have the rotisserie hip thrust. That's a whole different mechanics. That's a pure hinge method because you're on a rotating pad. It's actually like harder at the bottom and easier at the top. And then you also have single leg hip thrusts, which we don't push those as much. We do those off the Scorcher, my first invention. But
I was doing those today. Single legs on the Scorcher.
really,
Yeah. When I was doing deadlifts, I was warming my glutes
that's
up.
cool. So you have your different hip thrust variations. Bench press. Don't just think of your bench press. You should care about your bench press, your close grip bench press, your dumbbell bench press, your push-ups.
Your incline. Yeah.
Your incline, maybe dips if you tolerate them well. But I have girls doing 20 dips, 20 body weight dips deep.
Yeah.
And with military press, think of all the different shoulder press variations. You could seated shoulder press. They're all related a little bit. Care about all that, and then focus when you're competing. Focus on them for 8 weeks or whatever. It doesn't have to be 16 weeks long. It could be a 10-week cycle or something, and then have an off season.
Yeah.
Go back to more variety.
Yes.
Don't worry. Don't stop doing the big lifts. And
Yes.
you could still do progressive overload in higher rep ranges with a little more volume, and use the machines and do less specificity, and then save. That's what we do now. We typically here in Fort Lauderdale, we do a hip thrust variation. We do a squat variation, either one or two legs, but it could be one of the machines I mentioned earlier. We do a hinge variation, but if your low back is sore, do a knee flexion instead. And then we do two different abduction movements, one straight up in the frontal plane, one in the horizontal transverse plane. And then if you want to add in some kickbacks or a leg curl or something, go for it. If you want to do a band burnout or something, go for it. But we typically do 4 lower body lifts. And then for upper body day, we typically do, and by the way, that's in any order. So typically my girls want glutes as their main goal, then they hip thrust first. But there's a lot of variations. You have a lot of variety in there. They are going for progressive overload in higher rep ranges typically. I want my girls to hip thrust 315 for 20.
Yeah.
It's doable. It's hard though. But then for but you could do squats first. You could do a hinge first. If you're really trying to develop your shelf, then do abduction first. But there's so many ways to do it, and it depends on your primary goal. But
Exactly.
then if for upper body, you do a horizontal press, a vertical press, a horizontal pull, a vertical pull in any order. So but have phases where you're more focused on your chin-ups. Try to lose weight. That'll help your chin up a lot.
There you go.
And then do chin-ups 3 times a week. You could play around with grip. It could be supinated, pronated, neutral, or it could be high rep, like band assisted, then body weight, and then weighted. But you could do a lot. It could be, a chin up twice, like Monday, Friday, and then a pull down on Wednesday. But yeah, you can get really strong, but you got to do them first and prioritize them. Most people have never prioritized their chin up before.
Yeah.
But it could be in any order. So 2 presses, 2 pulls from different angles, then throw in some isolation work at the end. 1 day a week, do some extra arms, like some biceps and triceps. 1 day a week, do some extra delts. But you don't have to do a lot of front delt because those get worked with bench and chin, military press. But you could do side delts and rear delts.
Yeah.
Do some type of lateral raise and some type of rear delt movement. And voila, So we typically do lower, upper, lower, upper, lower. So that's my most common split.
Sure.
Like lower body Monday, Wednesday, Friday, upper body Tuesday, Thursday, but then they take Saturday and Sunday off. But it could be a lot of different ways to do that. But for men, I typically do, like 2 lower body days and 2 upper body days.
Sure.
Men they're never going to want to do as much glute volume as women.
Sure.
One study showed women do 30 sets a week of glutes and men do 9. But a lot of guys have never, I remember, what's the guy who's trending right now? Sam
Sulek or something? Yeah.
So popular. He seems such a down-to-earth, cool dude. But Jeff Nippert just analyzed his training, and he did like nothing. He did the least amount for glutes. It was like he broke it down, and his typical bro. Most younger dudes don't want to train glutes.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's
Yeah.
like it's a bodybuilding thing. It's
And-
been this way
and that's
forever.
what it is, yeah.
You never have a glute day. If you're a bodybuilder, you have. What do you do on Monday? I do chest.
Chest always on Monday.
Chest on Monday. What do you do on Tuesday? Back.
Yep.
What do you do on Wednesday? Shoulders. What do you do on Thursday? Sometimes it's arms, and then Friday is legs that
Yep.
they skip. Like, I'm just gonna run.
Yeah.
Or
Because they want to go out tonight.
yeah. I'm sore. My upper body's so sore.
Yep.
But yeah, it's like they do. And legs is typically. But in all of bodybuilding history, bodybuilders never say glutes. It's like the weirdest thing. They will not. It's okay to train traps, front, side, and rear delts, biceps, triceps, even forearms are okay to train. Pecs, upper pecs, lower pecs, even like lats, upper lats and lower lats.
Yeah.
Erectors are okay to train. Abs, obliques,
Yeah.
quads, hamstrings, calves. But never the glutes. It's the weirdest taboo in bodybuilding, male bodybuilding. And then women bodybuilding, like bikini, it's all about glutes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Glutes are more important than every muscle put together,
Yeah.
added together. Glutes are more important than,
Yeah.
it's this weird, yeah. It's like with my bikini girls, they, they care more about glutes than every other muscle together, and
Yep. That's right.
They want
wish-
to train it 3 days a week.
yeah,
Guys don't have 1 day, and they got 3 days.
yeah, exactly.
But that's what their goal is, so. But I've noticed that was probably one of the biggest faults that I've seen in a lot of powerlifters that I'm dealing with now. If I have a serious powerlifter, they compete at most twice a year, and the very first block after a competition, they do not touch the barbell compound lifts. They're not doing squats. They're not doing barbell back squats of their competition. It might be high bar if they compete low bar, But generally speaking, it'll be like a front squat, to build up the abs and
I always liked if they're super upright squatters, I make them do low bar, vertical, try to keep a vertical shin. Not everyone can do it, but sit back.
Yeah.
Learn to sit back.
Use those
Start out super light. Learn to reach back and
Yeah.
keep the shins vertical.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard to do for some people, but you can get way better at it. I've had people do, 6 weeks of box squats and then shatter their squat PR because they were never leaning. They could never lean. They were so upright, only using quads. Mm-hmm. And then they learn to sit back and use their hips more, and then it transfers. But if they lean so much, which a lot of girls who train glutes, they're so strong in the glutes and hamstrings, and then they don't do any quads, so they want to fold like an accordion during squats.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like
You
you're
have them
looking
doing
at-
hack squats or high bar Smith machine or front squats, and then that transfers to their squat really well because it builds their quads. But yeah,
Sure.
do something different.
Yeah, build that
Because
weak
the
link.
worst thing to witness as a coach is that lifter that competes on Saturday, and they set they set a PR and they're like, it's the first time they've ever deadlifted 500 pounds. And they're like, my goal, me and this powerlifting friend I had used to make fun of it. My goal is to hit 600 in 3 months. Like, you just hit 500 pounds. You think you're going to hit 600 in 3 months?
Wow.
And then they're training on that Monday. And you know they're going to crash and burn. So they just competed on Saturday, and then Monday they're back at it,
Yeah.
hitting the lifts hard. And
Yeah.
you're like, God, you got to chill. Like, you don't have patience and long-term perspective. And we've all been there. We've all done that. In our 20s, we can all look back at how teens and 20s, how stupid we used to
Yes.
train. But you have to injuries and pain teach you lessons, and then
Yeah.
you learn
Oh,
how to
that's
be
very
more.
Which I snuck mine in. I think I was still 29. So yeah, mine was my injuries in my 20s. But I didn't start powerlifting until I was 27. I think it was 2018. So
Well, you're indestructible. You're
exactly in your
you're
20s.
invincible.
Yeah.
But when you first start, you think you're invincible. You have to learn
Yeah.
the hard way.
Yeah.
We all have to learn the
Unfortunately,
hard
yeah.
way.
Or you're wise and you listen to
Yeah,
guys like
no,
us who have
no
done
one
it.
does.
But
No,
those
men-
people are
men
few and far
don't do that.
between.
Women can do that, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Too much ego. We're like, yeah, that applies to everyone
Yep.
else, but I'm different. I can
Exactly.
round my back.
Yep.
I can round as much as I want on deadlifts, and I'm not bashing round. I round back, but you got to learn what you can get away with.
Yeah.
I can't fully round and relax my lumbar and just be like pure. I'm rounding probably 50% of my max capacity at the lumbar and more at the thoracic, but you learn what you can get away with over time.
Yeah.
And you learn to listen to your body too. I'm 47. I can never just go and train how I want to. Think about how cool it would be if we could squat every week progressively.
Yeah.
Twice
Have
a
5
week.
pounds on there. 5 pounds on there.
Deadlift as hard as we want. You can't always deadlift like you want to. Sometimes
Exactly.
you go to bench press and you
Yeah.
might have a front upper pec or front delt tweak, like a little minor strain, or it could just be the anterior capsule of your shoulder that's causing pain, but you can't. It sucks. You
Yeah.
can't train through it. You got to train around it.
Exactly. You have
So
to
you're
figure
like,
out a way that you can
I
still
gotta
make
maybe
progress.
I can do floor press,
Yeah.
and it doesn't hurt. I can train my triceps harder,
Yeah, or
but I
close grip,
can't
yeah.
keep re-aggravating that, or it never goes away, and it becomes more of a chronic problem.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And then your body starts compensating around it, and then, like you said, it produces way more issues down the road.
Yep.
So,
Okay, so our lifters have a lot of advice about training. Thank you so much for that, Brett. Why don't we talk about, TC, do you want to talk about how the event will be structured so that people can,
prepare for the day.
yeah.
Yeah, so at this event, there will actually be 7 total lifts. So StrongLifting, the StrongLifting event itself is 6 lifts only. But because it's 6 lifts, that's necessarily going to mean that everyone will be lifting in 2 sessions. So the morning session is going to be just like a regular powerlifting meet. It's going to be 3 attempts, squat, bench, and deadlift. I am aiming to have that session run from about 9 o'clock on the dot in the morning until right around 12:30, maybe 1 o'clock if we go over a little bit. And that will conclude the first session. And then we're going to go into our American Challenge Florida Strict Curl competition. That's going to run from about 1 to 3. Since we have 2 platforms, we'll be able to kind of move through that relatively quickly. Strict curl flights usually move quickly anyway. So then we're going to do the awards for the strict curl. And then we're going to bring the strong lifting competitors back in. So now that they've gotten a chance to go relax, they can eat lunch, kind of get a little rejuvenated for their afternoon session. They come back and we start lifting at 4 p.m. So we'll have a rules meeting for the second session lifts, which will be the military press, the weighted chin up, and the hip thrust at 3:30. And we'll start lifting at 4 and ideally run until about 7:30 at night, maybe 8 o'clock. And then we do the awards for the strong lifting after that.
Perfect. And do you want to talk about what categories will be awarded?
Sure. So we have, for strict curl, we'll be doing, we have the open class best male and female lifters, and I'm actually getting some super cool like custom hardwood Thor's hammers for those guys. We will be, for strong lifting, we'll be awarding the best male and female open class lifters. And then Bret had some other awards that he had given out in the past at other strong lifting competitions, and we kind of wanted to perpetuate that. So we have 4 other special awards that we'll be giving out as well. It'll be strongest upper body, which is bench press, military press, weighted
Back
chin
in the
up.
day, we did, I think there were like,
Yeah, I think you had a lot more than those 4.
no, I had like 40 medals.
Yeah,
Because we did absolute strongest, but because we had, you know, between 16 and 30 competitors, you know? So we didn't do weight classes. We did absolute strongest 2 lifters, first strongest and second strongest in all 6 lifts.
sure.
And they had relative strongest and second relative strongest in all 6 lifts. So that's 24 medals right there.
Yeah, yeah.
And we had strongest and second strongest total, strongest and second strongest relative total, strongest and second strongest lower body, relative strongest and second strongest lower body. Same with upper body, 4 for upper body. Then we had strongest pusher, which were the 4 pushes. That's squats, bench, military, and hip thrusts. Then strongest puller, chin-ups and deadlifts. So 4 medals for each lift, total, upper, lower, pusher, and puller.
Sure.
So it's 4, 5, 11 times 4, 44 medals.
Okay.
We can do that still, but it's weird because we haven't ever had enough people to do
Yeah, like the weight classes and
do weight classes and
Yeah.
have it be done the way you're going to do it. So
yeah. So for this one, since we're capping it at 60 lifters, and we have, what is it, like, I don't know, 12, 10, 15 weight classes, something like that. We should have some depth because I'm only allowing the open class registration for this first event. So there are no single lifts and there are no age categories. It's open class and you're in the weight class that you weigh in at. So we will be maintaining the strongest pusher, strongest puller, strongest upper body, and strongest lower body. And we actually have some cool like A7 prize packages to be given out with those. And we'll also be giving out A7 prize packages for the best male and female masters competitors of the strict curl competition as well. For the best male and female open class, just by like you were talking about with the relativity for that's how the best lifters will be awarded. And we're getting
it's funny. Now we have male and female. So
yeah.
potentially 88 medals if we stuck with the same for men and women. But we'll figure that out. But like it's cool because I wanted more opportunities to medal. And if you're a badass lifter, you might end up with 8 medals, you know, in one day. So
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah, and we can refine this going forward, but I figured for the first
It's
competition.
always that cool for that unexpected like medal that comes up, like second strongest relative puller, or like lower body, and like the person who doesn't expect it, and they're like, oh my god, I medaled! Like it's really cool.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and that's
Like me with the strict curl back in the day.
yeah.
You know, I'm not good at squats or bench, but I've got strong biceps.
Right. That's
Yes,
right.
sir. You got those guns.
We-
Yeah. So, but for the best male and female lifters overall, we're getting these cool custom 4-foot metal tridents. They're handmade over in the Ukraine, and they used to give them out at the bodybuilding show. Someone
Hurt.
ruined that for everyone else, so now we get to give them out at our strong lifting competition. If we have to mail them back to you, we will do that.
Yeah, it'll be a good time.
But yeah, it should be super fun. It's going to be a great environment. I know that for me personally, I've competed in a few different federations, and 100% Raw just has a very welcoming, open, familial like feeling in the warm up area. And it doesn't matter if you know the people that are around you or not. Like
That's what I want
everyone is
people
there.
to know. Mm-hmm. Like powerlifting is, and like strong lifting, I know it's just been us, but we're so, it feels like a little family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you're
Yeah.
doing it, you know, for me, it's like I sucked at squats. So when we get to the deadlifts, these guys are expecting me to, and like, you know, I'm pulling 600 pounds. There's guys out there that squat what they deadlift.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like they squat 600 and they deadlift 600.
Yes.
And I'm like, how? Like, I can
That's what's
pull
blowing me away too.
200 more pounds than
Yeah.
I can squat. But anyway, so, you know, they're like, whoa, like, good job, bro. Like, it's cool. You
Yeah.
impress some people if you don't care if you're just good at one lift or if you're just starting out and you don't, you know.
They wanna
They
help,
want to
honestly.
help and you'll make friends
Yeah.
and it's so supportive. Online, social media is trash things. There's so much trash
Yes.
talking and powerlifters online seem to be the nastiest.
Because that's what sells. You
But
know.
it's also just like nasty, like CrossFitters too. They're so nasty in the comments. Bodybuilders tend to be cool. And Olympic lifters and strongmen too.
Which is funny because at bodybuilding shows, everyone's hangry. So you feel like everyone's an asshole. They might not be an asshole. And actually, I know that from experience because my last show, I felt like I came across as an asshole a couple times to some people. But I'm sorry out there. I was just really hungry and tired and I was not having a good day. But my first show, I had a great time.
Yeah.
I was super happy and I was just like my normal powerlifter self in the back area. But yeah, my second show kind of sucked. But yeah, powerlifters are super supportive. And actually, you were commenting on that at our last powerlifting event, the Iron Belt Classic. Just how everyone, like, we had a female flight and a male flight. It was just 2-flight event. And it was a great event because by the end of it, everyone who was in that flight, they were all friends with each other. They were all talking at the end of it. And they were all helping each other out. And, oh, hey, you're up next and blah, blah, blah. And it was just, I love powerlifting meets. I love spotting and loading in powerlifting meet. I love being involved in them because not only do you see the positive energy on the platform, and it's just such a good feeling, even if I have no idea who you are, watching you get that lift and seeing how happy it makes you is just one of the best feelings in the world to me. So being able to put on one of these events where we get to see that happen over and over and over again is just like, it's an enormous gift to us to be able to see you guys out there just like having such a great time and building that camaraderie with a bunch of people who you never met before, you know, but you're all out there doing the same thing and just having a blast doing it.
So the meet, it's the first time it's open to the public. We have 60 lifters. There's like, what, 9, 8 who have
I
signed
think
up
right
so far?
now we have 6.
6 signups.
Yep. So we got 50.
So I haven't announced it yet. There's 6 signups. It's June 1st. Mm-hmm. And how many weeks away is that?
So I believe this past weekend was 11 weeks out.
So we're like 10 weeks out. Perfect amount of timing to train hard and compete. So I'm hoping to fill up and get 60 lifters.
Yes.
So I'm going to put it on my newsletter. I'm going to put it on my, my Instagram, especially my story, and hope to get 60 lifters. But we're going all out. It's in Miami. It's at what convention center is it?
So it's at the Miami Airport Convention Center.
The Miami Airport Convention Center. So it's during an event.
Yes.
What event is going on there?
There's the NPC. It's IFBB. It's NPC and an IFBB show.
So it's a bodybuilding competition.
It's a fitness expo with a
Yeah.
bodybuilding.
It's a
Yes.
fitness expo with a bodybuilding
It was built
competition.
around the bodybuilding show,
Yeah.
but now they have like Ninja Warrior. They have a calisthenics thing. They
Yeah,
have
so-
a couple different things.
Yeah, like at the Olympia and the Arnold, they've got a million different things going on. Here we're gonna have the first strong lifting meet,
Yes.
open to males, open to the public, and first come, first serve, 60 lifters. But we're getting I just put down what, $7,000 for the back, the
Yeah,
screens?
yeah. So we're getting big, and they in the estimate it says 12 by 16 foot LED screens. I don't know if I can fit 16 foot wide, so they might only be 14 foot wide. But
But
rest
two
assured,
screens.
like these screens are enormous, and it will like. Brett asked for a world class event, so I have made it my civic duty to make sure that that is what we are bringing.
Yeah,
to you guys.
you'll feel cool. You'll feel
Yes.
like, I don't know how the audio, like it's going to be loud. Hopefully we can hear. But
Yeah.
we hope to have good music and good DJ and like a cool, like a good event that you'll feel proud having the video footage from this event, you know?
And on these screens, the reason that we have these screens is so that we can showcase you guys as athletes. So as soon as you sign up, I'm going to be sending emails out to request this information from you guys. And there's going to be, I want to say 5 different slides, because I think I reused one for the squat and the military press, which is just your general information slide to, like, you know, kind of talk about you as an athlete, where you're from, when you started lifting, this, that, and the other.
A picture
And then,
of you.
yeah, and then we're getting pictures of you guys. We might do some videos, but like these walls are meant. We're getting them to make you guys like exemplified as athletes. So it should be a really, really fun event. Yeah.
And the medals are custom made.
Yep. They're going to be big 6-inch soft epoxy, full color medals, just like they give out at these bodybuilding shows. Yeah, it's going to be really fun.
Yeah, it'll be a good time.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Before I close us out with some like last minute housekeeping stuff, any other things you want to talk about with the event that you want the listeners or athletes to know?
No, I look forward to, I'll be there obviously, and I look forward to meeting some of you and having you participate in the sport that I thought up. And
Yeah.
thank you guys for, you know, I didn't know you and now we're friends, but
Which we met at last year's Miami
that's right.
International Fitness Expo.
Yeah, I was competing.
Because Chris was going to get
Yeah.
feedback, and I said,
Came up
"Well,
and-
you do that. I'm
I
going to
was
go
going
talk
to the
Brett."
bathroom. Was I going to the bathroom or?
I think you were standing there. I want to say you were talking to Paul or maybe Brittany Hamilton,
Oh yeah.
but because I remember as I was walking around the corner, like we made eye contact, and I felt like
Yeah.
you knew that I was coming over there to talk to you, and you're like, "What does this guy want?"
I try to like, if I think someone knows who I am, I try to be like, I gotta tell, we'll close with the funniest story. I moved to Vegas and, I see someone in the parking lot and they're like looking at me and I'm like, so I don't ever do this. I'm not this big of a D-bag. She's looking at me and she's like nods and I'm like, oh, are you a fan? You want to take a picture? I just thought she like wanted to take a picture because she had her phone out. And she's like, no, why would I want a picture of you? And I go, oh my God, I thought you knew me. She goes, you just joined my tanning salon I worked the front desk of the tanning salon and you joined last week to tan.
So you do recognize me.
I'm like,
I
oh
knew
my
it.
God, I can
I
explain.
want a picture.
I can explain. I have an Instagram following. I'm well known in the strength and conditioning industry. I thought you knew who I was. I'm so sorry.
I love
God,
that.
it must look so stupid.
You should try
I
that
never
next.
do that.
Yeah.
I never do that. You want a picture? Come on. I did it one time and it backfired.
Oh my God, that's great.
But I try to be inviting. Like,
Yeah.
if you know who I am, come talk to me. Hell, my whole life you want to be like
Appreciated for the work that you're
just
putting
more than
in. I mean,
average.
yeah.
Like,
I'm sure a lot of people want your picture on June 1st.
Yes.
you don't want to go through life just being average, being
Exactly.
ordinary. I
Yep.
always wanted to be. So when people come to me, it makes me know lets me know I'm doing something right. So I'm excited to meet some people and like-minded people and show some support and help hopefully watch you set some PRs.
We have some clients of ours that are flying in to help run the event, so they'll be excited
Yeah.
to meet you too.
And we might even see you up on the platform, right?
No, I should.
Everyone out there, I'm trying to talk Brett into at least doing the strict curl, but we also talked about him doing the StrongLifting competition.
I know.
So
Things to think
that's
about.
to be determined. If you would like
I
to
need to
see
decide
Brett
now because I need to
compete,
start training for it.
yep, then definitely send him a message and say we want you to
Just-
compete.
Well, it sucks because I'm 47 and I can get close to PR, but I'm like, when I do, then I injure myself.
Well, what I always ask people,
I can still, if I focus on one lift, but all 6 and the curl, 7 lifts, I'd have to be smart about my training and not do what I say and go too crazy. So,
Yeah.
but I need to decide soon. But also, it's good for me to be not training and just walking around and like helping out.
Yes,
So
yeah.
either way,
You'll be there.
yeah, which was initially why I asked about the strict curl, to allow you to continue like helping your girls and other people as well, because I know you
what
just
if I
like
pass
helping
out?
people. Yeah, I'll be there to catch you. Don't worry.
Well, thanks for having me on.
Of
I
course.
appreciate
Yes,
you
sir.
guys
Thank
very
you.
much. Yes.
Yeah. No,
Yeah, we had a
we're
great time.
excited.
So
All right, guys. So for more information on the StrongLifting event in Miami, or to submit your registration, you can visit recklesstraining.com/events. Any questions you have specifically about the event, you can message TC. You can contact him at recklesstraining@gmail.com, or he is on Instagram at longshotgamble. If you are interested in the StrongLifting certification for BC Academy, you can go to bretcontrerasacademy.com, and I'll link the hyperlink in the show notes. If you want to find more of Bret's content on his YouTube channel or through Instagram, you can find him at Booty by Bret or at Bret Contreras _1. You can find information on our coaching at recklesstraining.com, or you can follow us on Instagram at reckless_training. Again, TC is at longshotgamble. Feel free to ask us questions, and I am at Chris Nicole _IFBB Pro. And with that, TC, will you take us out?
yes, ma'am. And as always, just remember, work hard, stay humble, and train reckless.